Imagine you're a member of the Coast Guard. April 1972. You get a distress call from a damaged offshore boat. You quickly pack your things and leave to attempt a rescue. But when you're out on the open sea, you're caught by a sudden storm and things start taking a strange turn. Your radio snaps on. An angry, desperate voice starts shouting through the static, his words making no sense to you. The storm ramps up, darkness engulfing your boat. When you look away, a pickaxe spawns in your left side window. And when you look behind you, you're left laying on your boat, waiting for rescue. But none comes. When you wake up, you find yourself stranded on an island. Fort Oasis. A towering concrete catacomb stands before you, long abandoned by its original inhabitants. You repair your boat with the materials you find on the shore, but the transmission you heard before passing out still haunts you. There's someone else out there. Someone who wants to be found.
And so you enter the mining colony in search of the one who reached out to you, but they remain elusive. They speak to you on your radio, offer advice, and even tell you where you need to go. But things stand in your way. Every step you take is a fight for survival, as monsters, disturbed by your arrival in their nests, come out in droves to hunt you down. It feels deeply personal. You're forced to take up weapons to defend yourself. You start scavenging for supplies anywhere you go. Your lead pipe covered in duct tape and barbed wire is your best friend. Your favorite pastime becomes cooking delicious moldy bread on your 20-pound gas cooker and exercising your inner engineer by crafting improvised weapons. At which point you realize, wait a minute, haven't I done all this before? And instead of implicitly trusting some guy with a radio who's trying to catfish you into the flesh mines to confront your inner demons and depression, you leave on your perfectly functional boat this time. And then you realize you could have skipped the whole game by doing this. Also, because I upload once every 3 years on this channel, we have official Total Chaos merch, including a t-shirt, cap, and poster. But if you're poor, I've hidden 10 codes around this video. If you fill out this Google form with all 10 codes, the first 10 people will get a merch collection for free.
Come here, my fat concubine.
Also, I uploaded this video on my birthday, so say happy birthday for my ego. Thanks. It really helps support me making videos like this, and best of all, it doesn't even look like YouTuber merch, so you won't get bullied in public for wearing it. Link for all of these will be down in the description. 3 years ago, I made a video called The Second Best Free Game You Never Played, Total Chaos.
That's bait.
Which was a video based off the best free game you never played, Cry of Fear. That's a game where you'd run around Sweden as a depressed man because he can't find a store that sells his very specific brand of Zins.
You know what Zin stands for?
Now, in Total Chaos, you play as a depressed man, but he's not running around Sweden, and he doesn't want Zins. Instead, he wants cigarettes. So, as you may have noticed in the past few years, I kind of fell off.
You fell off.
As you've seen in the media industry pretty heavily, when stocks are down, there's a special cheat code you can use. Nostalgia.
It's your boy, Global Warming here.
That's why most films today are sequels. Like, you remember the film Come and See? A critically acclaimed 1985 film where a child goes through hell, appearing committed at the beginning, only at the end to become defeated by the demons around him, and also constantly pulling the I'm acting face. Well, they did actually make that into a sequel where he has to do it all over again. It's called Silent Hill 2. Now, when you're a YouTuber, it does get a bit more complicated.
I am so full and my tummy is so round and big. Oh, it's so big and soft, and I hope there is no blonde British man to rub it. Oh gosh, it's so full.
You actually get 2 more choices to try and desperately claw back your relevancy. You either become Mr. Beast Light, spending 0.1% of his budget because you'll never have the money that Mr. Teeth has. Or you become a YouTube Shorts merchant, a transformative process where your accent goes from perfectly spoken English and slowly devolves into a weird malformation of newsreader speak I call the TikTok accent.
Hey guys, it's me, Mr. Beast, and in this video I'm giving away $100,000.
If I ever speak like that reading this script, shoot me in the back of the head. Kill me. If you understood any of that video, just comment W speed and click off the video, please. However, instead, I'm stuck nostalgia baiting. As you may have noticed, this entire intro is basically stolen from my original Total Chaos video. And that's because I wanted to talk about the recently released remake of the 2018 Doom mod, which is, again, a complete ground-up rebuilding of the mod into the Unity engine. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, the Unity engine, I promise you, it's gotten better over the years. People are actually using it for good stuff now. I promise.
Oh my god, is that an Unreal Engine game? Oh my god. Oh, the textures, look, they're loading in.
Which, of course, means that finally, the game is free from the shackles of the Doom engine. So now, instead of making you fumble around trying to mod a game from literally 1994, you can just pick it up on Steam for a reasonable price. And yes, in a very tragic turn of events, I'm sorry to report, this is no longer the second best free game you ever played. Now, this game is really good. I might be a little bit biased. It's $25, but the original mod was free, and you can still even play that right now if you're still too scared to shill out mommy's debit card. But despite that, the remake is very much worth it. Notice how I said it's a remake and not just a remaster. Apart from the obvious graphical improvements you'd expect from re-releases, this is effectively a completely new game made in the image of the old mod, with a ton of shiny polish on old mechanics, as well as a lot of changes and new content. Sadly, I do have to report, though, there's no battle pass. You can see straight away when you start a new game, instead of having a text scroll telling you just how bad the storm was that left you stranded on Fort Oasis like in the original, you're thrown into the boat to experience it yourself in a proper cutscene. Oh, look at the desk guy. Oh, look, physics. And like I mentioned earlier, once you wake up after being shipwrecked, you're also given the option of doing the #1 thing best in Fort Oasis, leaving.
Because I live in a shithole!
Just like in Far Cry 4, you're actually allowed to skip out on the entire game, collect the ending, and then brag about how you speedrun it in 2 minutes.
Plenty of fish in the sea.
By the way, if you're experiencing deja vu from that Shadow Complex reference, that's because I made the exact joke back in the original Total Chaos video, and the dev not only added that as an ending, but also named the achievement for getting it after that line. Your show might have a white woman doing nothing for half the season. My game puts me in the special thanks at the end credits. But there is a subset of people who, if they're even still watching and not putting my video on the second monitor, that are completely lost as to what I'm even talking about. Either that, or if you totally forgot what Total Chaos is, because that video came out all the way back in 2022. The same year, the guy from YouTube Rewind slapped a man for making a joke about his wife.
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
I fucked your...
But aside that, here's a very brief and short synopsis. In case you didn't catch all that, let me try and paraphrase real quick. Total Chaos is a total conversion mod for Doom 2, running specifically on the GZ Doom engine, which you might not initially believe when seeing footage of it for the first time, considering how the games look literally nothing alike. One has detailed environments with 3-dimensional enemies, and the other looks like something you can run on a calculator, which you can, by the way. The game runs on the same engine Doom did, and you actually need a copy of Doom 2 to even be able to play it. If anything, it's immensely impressive that it's even possible to get a game from 1994 to look like this. Being a total conversion mod, it completely overhauls the entire game, and instead of running around punching enemies while listening to MIDI rock music, you're put in a desolate, isolated survival horror instead. You play as Tyler and get shipwrecked on an island called Fort Oasis, where something evil has apparently taken root. And you keep pushing deeper into the island for no real reason except some guy on the radio telling you to go down to find something. And are forced to fight monsters like abandoned XL bullies, your ex-wife with her chud son, or the scariest monster of them all, inventory management, with a weight limit. And if you go through all of this, hours of pain, dying, loading quick saves, barely scraping by, just to find out the entire game was actually all in the head. So that's now the 8th video I've made talking about a sad protagonist fighting his inner demons. Yep. Very original, mate.
How original.
Gameplay-wise, it heavily leans into the survival part of survival horror, making you keep track of things like your hunger, radiation, or weapon durability. Kind of like Fallout 3, how you just ragdoll with too much radiation, and weapons would break after your 50th missed shot because the game doesn't even use iron sights properly. And then in New Vegas, they did actually include proper iron sights, and you still couldn't hit anything anyway. It even has a crafting system that lets you make shivs out of broken glass or combine miscellaneous colored compounds into dirty old syringes to inject yourself with. Maggot. There's also a stamina mechanic, which basically shapes your entire combat experience. The combat is heavily melee focused, where you can evade attacks like dodging, kind of like Dark Souls 2 if the hitboxes weren't the size of a small African country, with guns usually saved as a last resort since ammo is pretty scarce until the late game. The only thing really incentivizing you to spend it being how heavy some of it is to carry around. Like how bullets are weightless, except the magazines for the Lurger pistol weigh for some reason. You can't sprint into Total Chaos, but you can use stamina to dodge, which is the only defensive tool you really have in the game. Or you can execute charged attacks, which you can only do if you have two-handed weapons like a sledgehammer. These leave you exhausted, but honestly, it's a small trade-off, considering it's the only real way to play the game if you're not really into getting combo broken every time you try to chain quick attacks together. One cool thing about this game was how it chained all of these mechanics together. Your stamina regenerates much slower if you're hungry. So if you don't have any food on you, you're already that much worse off in combat. Find some moldy bread that you're willing to risk everything for? Congratulations, your Geiger counter is now having a seizure. Try to carry extra rations with you so you don't fall into the same trap again? Well, guess what? Being overweight also annihilates your stamina. And it gets even better. Say you make a severe and continuous lapse in judgment and end up getting hit. This will probably make you bleed. You can just take some blood clotters that are pretty common to help, right? Well, pretty much any commonly found item in the game has a downside. So they will stop your bleeding, but then also increase your hunger, so you're basically back to square one. Try to out-heal the bleeding instead. You'll never guess what the most common healing item, the Humble Stim Pack, does to your bleed and hunger. Want to use the less common healing items that actually have no downsides? That's great, but then you have to actually go out and find them. And if you do find one, feel absolute despair for how much they weigh. It's kind of like the coin flip in Fear and Hunger, but instead of a coin flip that's RNG, you're in total control. That control being just never take damage the entire game. Lamau. I'll admit, though, all of these problems I mentioned do have their own solutions. If you aren't legally blind, you'll probably find plenty of food everywhere you go. Or instead, you'll just cook the irradiated Cobalt-60 bread on a gas cooker, completely eliminating any leftover radiation. And besides, radiation stops being a problem once you realize that not only do the pills that treat it weigh nothing, they're also so common that you'll end up completely stacked on them by the time you find enough rotten food to even make the radiation bad enough to hurt you in the first place. And if you're really struggling for food, despite the items glowing with what I like to call irradiated yellow paint, enemies sometimes drop parts of their body which you can eat. You will take damage doing this, but again, the mighty gas cooker comes in clutch, negating all damage, turning a rotten piece of monster flesh into the finest Costco ultra-processed hot dog, cooked only in the most premium of seed oils. The same kind that if a fitness influencer spots it inside a supermarket, they pull out their phone and go straight from a Norwood 2 to a 7, coping about how bad it is for you. Now, if you're overweight in the game, you can just start dumping a lot of random items you're probably holding. Like, again, trust me, you don't need to be carrying 4 bottles of wood glue and 40 empty syringes. And there's even an armor later on that actually increases your carrying capacity if you're a disgusting hoarder like me. The only downside is it doesn't speak to you like that armor you find in Fallout 3.
Listen up, you goddamn puke.
Now, as I've said before, if you take damage, first of all, skill issue. A charged attack user can't relate. The stim pack and blood clotters can send you down a resource spiral, but honestly, the game pretty frequently rewards you with proper healing items like medkits and bandages if you explore around a little. Did I just say little and not little? Ugh. I don't like enunciating the T. I've actually tried to enunciate the T more after a certain incident. To go out in public and, you know, rape people.
What? No!
And while their weight can be a problem, it's also another wake-up call to stop picking up random rocks everywhere and throw them like every Gen Alpha after the social media ban. And then they were forced to go outside to socialize. All of this just to say the game is actually pretty fair with its challenges, which after the last video is a very welcome change of pace. The actual plot of the game is where it got very interesting, and it was a lot of the reason behind why I made the original video. The only concrete setup you get before you're thrown into Fort Oasis is that you're working as a coast guard, responding to a distress call. As you progress through the game, a voice talks to you on the radio, always telling you where to go to progress and spurring you to go deeper and deeper down, concluding in the heart of Fort Oasis, the mines. From that, you might assume at first that this is the person who sent the distress call out, one of the last sane voices on the island after it's been seemingly abandoned and then quickly taken over. But a lot of things seem off. The voice talks to you like he knows you, right from the very first line he says to you.
Something we have both desired for a long time.
Later, even referencing people you supposedly know very well. There's also a lot of notes to be found throughout the game. A couple talking about Fort Oasis and its general history, but most centering around a man named TJ Scott. Some coming from doctors, beginning with prescriptions for depression, with his name barely legible, and later notes detailing his battle with cancer and even revealing he managed to beat it and was in remission. And some coming from characters in his life, like his girlfriend Lida or an old friend of his, Ryan. I'm not going to try and do that slow burn reveal bit again. If you pay attention, it becomes pretty obvious that you are Tyler Scott, and the events of the game aren't actually real. The voice on the radio is you, Tyler, a different part of him that, through leading you down Fort Oasis, tries to make you fully give up. Tyler has created a fantasy where he's trying to justify game ending himself. God, I hate this website so much, man. Now, he goes through with this, as many people do, justifying it by isolating himself, being aggressive to his friends and family, pushing them all away to make the choice not easier, but the only choice. This isn't Silent Hill 2 where you have to avoid killing enemies to get the better ending, but sometimes you'll notice that some enemies don't actually fight back.
They would try to stop you. If you get in your way, kill them.
Killing these and other choices you make throughout the game represent him cutting off his connections from the real world, something holding him back from really going through with it. Until at the end of the game, when he makes it past everything and everyone that tried to help him, but now in his head stood in his way, he's left standing in front of a noose with no other choice but to use it, to escape those feelings of isolation, hopelessness, and shame. Most people only get the normal ending, where Tyler sees no other option, but there is a good ending of the game. I don't really like to say a good ending, but more of like a better outcome, even though the remake lists that as the achievement, by the way. This is where you play a contrarian Tyler that does the exact opposite of everything the voice on the radio is telling him to do, keeping some connection to his real life intact. He manages to prove his own fantasy wrong, going directly against himself and breaking the cycle of repeatedly punishing himself.
Was wrong.
And that's Total Chaos 2018. And Total Chaos 2025 is basically the same, except for new areas, new weapons, new mechanics, new crafting, new dialogue, new lore, and new entire chapters. Anything that was brought over that was from the original game got straight up improved, changed, or at least had a new coat of paint slapped on, starting with the very basics, the engine.
No more GZ Doom. In this house, we run engines within the current century. In this case, Unity, which Google AI will flat out lie about, saying that the game was made in Unreal Engine, when in reality, the game was actually meant to be in Unreal Engine, but it was swapped for Unity. Sadly, not the Godot engine, so you can't give someone 5 kilometers away by slightly touching them. Holy Pyro Commission. And according to Wadaholic, the creator of the original mod and the game director of the remake, that was actually one of the main improvements of having a proper modern engine, because he could test changes without having to render literal minutes and recompile the entire game every time he wanted to make a change, which is apparently what you had to do when developing on GZ Doom back when Total Chaos was made and it was just a mod. I think the only equivalent I can think of is alt-tabbing out of a source game, and then the random numbers game plays out if your entire PC bricks or not. There's also some mechanics, which I'll talk about later, that had to be cut from the mod simply because the Doom engine couldn't support it. The engine swap finally removed the limitations and let the full vision be realized. With Unity, a lot of the enemy models were remade as well to make them look extra nice and polished in the new engine, which pays off really well because now when you're being mauled to death, at least you can appreciate the nice models. Also, enemies ragdoll now instead of a preset death animation. You now remember GTA 4 and how every single NPC, if you walk into them, would stumble around like they're mastering the art of the Fentfold. The environments also got a glow up, and there's not really much I can say about them. I mean, they look really, really good. And best of all, now there's an FOV slider, which you can crank all the way up to 130 and LARP as someone playing Minecraft Bed Wars with 1500 hours. By the way, if you've been following what's been happening with Total Chaos around the time the remake was announced, you might be confused about it being made in Unity since the original announcement specified Unreal Engine 5. Somewhere during development, it did fall through, but the developers' tests with the engine show a glimpse of what could have been Total Chaos with RTX fully enabled.
But this is all the technical stuff. I can just sum it up by saying the game runs better, looks better, feels better, all things you'd expect from a remake. But then we get into the actual changes.
Earlier, I mentioned the resource balance in the mod. First off, radiation, gone. Completely erased. Now, I am really happy this stat is gone because it was so infuriating to deal with in the original. Usually, it'd never kill you, but it would just be very annoying having to take iodine pills every 5 seconds. So once I found out they removed it entirely from the game, I stood up from my official Clutch Chairs PewDiePie collab gaming chair and I clapped. The only questionable thing about it is eating moldy bread now has absolutely no downside. In fact, I don't understand the decision making this whatsoever, because eating moldy bread reduces your hunger and now actually heals you. Also, eating food can give you an additional stat, boost. This is completely new to the remake, and as long as it's filled up, prevents anything you do, like charged attacks or dodging, from lowering your hunger, as well as letting you charge attacks significantly faster. And if you at least have 1 bar of boost, you even get a temporary increase to your max stamina. So overeating is literally a benefit in this game.
I can't overstate how useful this is. The combat follows from the mod in how reliant it is on your stamina management. Whether it's for dodging or attacking, it's worth going out of your way to find proper food and maybe even cook it just to have that boost handy for combat. Or you could just drink a Monster Energy and instead take a future hit to your hunger in exchange for just enough boost to get through that section you're stuck on. You never really actively lose stamina when walking, which pushes you to take the time to scavenge each area.
On the topic of hunger, it still works largely the same, going up when you use stamina or specific items. But now, even if you're slightly peckish, instead of having slower stamina regen, you'll straight up lose some of your max stamina, meaning you can't execute a fully charged attack if that second notch happens to be anywhere in the red zone. Now, normally, I would complain about this being too punishing, but again, going hungry is basically impossible. That's because with how much zero downside rotten food is everywhere on the base difficulty. And it's not like there's a huge shortage of normal food either, when you can find whole stacks of salami sausage strewn around on the floor everywhere. And it's probably those ones that promote how they're high in protein and then they taste like eating a pure breeze block.
What do you think you're doing?
I'm asking for pepper.
Like hell you were. What was that?
I don't know what you're talking about, Howard.
You trying to insult me?
But of course, you'll be punished if you try and take every single item with you, because you're still heavily limited by your carrying capacity. At least this time, thank God, it's kilograms instead of, I'm just going to call it American slop units.
Boy.
Also, Americans, to any Americans watching, please stop using Fahrenheit as a way to measure temperature. It is pure cope. If you, as an American, have a supposedly mild day of 6-7 degrees Fahrenheit, that apparently translates into 19.4 degrees Celsius reoccurring. I might as well use Kelvin to measure if I can step outside or not. Anyway, your default carrying capacity is 50 kilograms. And you'll probably have that filled up by the first chapter alone with how much loot there is everywhere.
It's light work for me.
But don't worry, you'll immediately be notified of your hoarding habits by the fact that once you're over capacity, your characters start slowing down as they're carrying the equivalent of a small Romanian corner shop on their back. Not a huge deal if you're just above the cap. That is, if you can put up with the constant notification at the bottom of the screen that's the equivalent of someone messaging you saying something happened and respond when you can, and then not elaborating at all to bait you into a conversation. But if you go far enough and hit the second threshold, you'll be slower than most regular enemies and you'll inevitably start taking hits. And this brings me back to the mechanics cycle, just like I mentioned when talking about the mod. All the mechanics feed into each other, and this is continued in the remake. With the radiation gone, there's one less stat to deal with, but instead you're actually rewarded for doing well by being able to sustain boost and end fights quicker, losing less valuable healing items in the process, again going back to that that feedback loop and changing it even more in your favor. It makes it feel that much more rewarding to actually do well in the game. But even if you play perfectly and never get hit, you'll still be met with tough choices on what items you can bring with you and which ones to leave behind. Or you'll end up with the walking speed of one of my commissions. Not only that, combat feels much better as well, with a lot of quality of life changes. Charged attacks are still the least risk and highest reward, but now feel so much better as you're actually given proper indication of your charge meter, instead of a pretty pathetic tiny glow-up bar in the corner of your screen that you need prescription glasses to see. Your stamina bar is front and center, perfectly overlaid over whatever enemy you're currently fighting, giving both audio and visual indicators when you have a full charge. When you charge an attack, you get these notches, which symbolize the thresholds for how strong your attack will be. The first one is around halfway your stamina bar and is a weird limbo between a light and a heavy attack. It doesn't do as much damage as a real heavy attack, but it also doesn't drain your stamina bar fully, letting you kite enemies without having to sacrifice your damage output. It's really good if you want to play the game as careful as possible, you coward. However, if you instead spend the time and stamina to charge up a real wind-up attack, you can stun lock or even one-shot some enemies instead of having to bother dodging them at all.
Look, I hate to do it, but I will do it. I would give myself an A+.
But that being said, as easy as this sounds, some enemies later on are purposely designed to counter this, and I'll get into those later. There's also a new mechanic that I actually mentioned was missing back in my original video, so I will now proceed to take all the credit for it being added into the game. You're now finally allowed to use your weapon defensively and parry attacks, something Dark Souls 3 would shamelessly steal 10 years earlier. And in that game, if you beat anyone in PvP with a parry,
something is happening. Beauty's at work through pure and selfless acceptance.
you'd be invited to various warm and welcoming Steam groups, and many people would even sign your Steam profile for free. It's honestly really useful, giving you another defensive tool rather than just relying on dashes for the entire game. Just like everything else in combat, it does cost stamina to use, but significantly less than evading. So in a clutch situation where you're out of stamina and you need to avoid damage quickly, it can save you. The timing might feel a bit weird at first, especially since a lot of enemies tend to wind up their attacks a lot more than you'd think, but the window to block is actually really forgiving once you get used to it. An imperfect parry will damage your weapon but block damage. A perfect parry will put the enemy immediately into a stun state and refill your stamina, letting you wail on them for an easy kill. It can even parry ranged attacks, so again, getting used to it makes the game that much more manageable and makes combat feel a lot more fluid, like you're really trading hits with your opponent. It also finally makes primary attacks actually viable to use, since even if your combo chain gets broken by an enemy attacking you back, you can just quick block it, avoid all damage, and then go back to spam clicking them to death. So that's an example of a really good game mechanic. But on top of that, there's also weapon throwing.
No, I don't mean rocks and bottles like the throwables in the original, though those are also in the game. You can wind up a really impressive looking throw with your main weapon. It doesn't really do that much damage, and honestly, I'm not really sure what the situation it's designed for. I guess it could be a Hail Mary if you're just about to die to a ranged enemy that's too far away to kill. But then again, what are the chances their health is low enough to get one shot by a flying pickaxe? And then you're left without your weapon and either have to have a second one hotkeyed or go into your inventory and pull one out in a tense situation. It makes even less sense. If it's a pickaxe, for example, it'll actually stick into the enemy's body as well, so you can't bait it around and pick it back up off the floor.
Although with blunt weapons, this mechanic actually allows you to combo 360 no-scope lead pipe throws to keep stun locking enemies, since it flies all the way back to you after they get a hit. The only problem is they lose a huge amount of durability, so aside from aura farming, it's probably not worth it. And all that are just the base mechanics changes. The rest of the game is very much similar, using the original mod as a base and improving on it. And I think the only real way to do this remake justice is by again going through it chapter by chapter, starting with your arrival. After you're stranded on the island, stranded in big quotation marks, you walk down the exact same path as the original. You find the same note talking about how everyone is gone, quickly gathering the sense that you're being watched, and get a minimum durability pickaxe and have to do the same lever section you did before. Except now the way to the foreman's room where the key to the levers is now blocked by a 20 centimeter high box, which of course staggers you in place and completely blocks your path. The one thing still keeping the spirit of the original being a Doom mod is the fact that you've got infinite full damage, but also still can't jump. So instead, you're forced to sacrifice your only weapon to progress. The same weapon that seconds before was breaking 30 other boxes without losing any durability, and it now gets one shot. That's because the game really doesn't want you to spam charged attack on the first enemy and absolutely mog them, which is a real guide on Steam, by the way. It's titled that, and it shows the thumbnail from my original video for some reason. So now when you take the key and get thrown into your first encounter with a brute, instead of this being a short introduction to how combat works in the game, you're thrown into a purely horror chase as you spam dash trying to get the levers down before the monster can close the distance.
It's actually a nice subversion of the classic horror game trope of only facing actual enemies rather than less scary noises or quick silhouettes blinking once you find an actual weapon.
I mentioned this in the original video, how most horror games will only build up the atmosphere and tension without actually making you fight anything before you get a proper weapon to defend yourself. Normally, this is just good game design, letting the player have agency by only spawning enemies when they can fight back and using different ways to build up the tension. Having the funny side effect of actually making you even more scared once you get a weapon, knowing the game will force you to use it. But the remake flips this on its head, giving you a weapon and building your expectations, then letting them down and giving you a false sense of security when it breaks, only to spawn the enemy anyway. It makes the lever puzzle that much better too, since it keeps that tension all the way until you solve it, instead of just making you kill an enemy and letting you flip the rest in peace. The monster, by the way, is still the brute from the original game, and he works pretty much the exact same way. He still just slow walks towards you, sometimes entering what I call roid rage, rushing towards you, following up with a quick attack, which will most likely end up with you trading damage. And he still throws things at you if you kite him long enough, somehow generating fresh bricks and bottles when you can't seem to find any to throw back at him. One interesting interaction I noticed is enemies seem to flinch if you dash into them. Like some smaller ones will straight up get stunned if you throw your body weight against them, but the brutes instead feign getting hit to lure you into thinking he's stuck in some kind of recovery animation and then immediately does a counter attack, showing how despite this being the most common enemy, it doesn't make him simple by any means. After you escape, you'll notice another change from the original. These record players that serve as your save points instead of just letting you save wherever you want. This at least cuts down the rampant save scumming you could do in the original mod, making the game that much harder and also having additional mechanics related to the save points themselves, which I will talk about later. Seeing one of the record players also designates whatever room you just reached as being a safe zone, giving you a small space to catch your breath. It's not as obvious as some games, like Mr. X being mogged by a doorway in Resident Evil 2, but enemies usually spawn far away enough that you'll never encounter one near a save point. When you use one of them, it starts playing this old-timey music, specifically the 1919 song Everybody Wants a Key to My Cellar by Burt Williams.
Now everybody wants a key to my cellar.
I don't think it has much deeper meaning to the story, considering the song is about the Prohibition and having a moonshine set up in his cellar, but the vaudeville style of the song and the aged recording playing throughout the halls of Fort Oasis makes it feel that much older and out of place. The song itself even sounds sort of eerie in the context of keeping some sort of secret locked behind a cellar door. If you listen to it as well in full, it starts slowing down, lowering in pitch and distorting, showing how even the record players that are supposed to be your save points are in a state of decay. After the levers, you're put into a section that wasn't in the original mod at all, an actual proper puzzle that isn't just flipping levers. You're given 4 dials, each marked with a symbol, and have to find the proper position for each one. Every symbol seems to have some sort of higher meaning. Omega is very often used to symbolize the end of something or resistance. The next symbol is the most important symbol in the Hindu religion, representing the primeval sound, the essence of the supreme, absolute, and consciousness. Another symbol represents a sword. The last symbol is missing, but you can find it when you're looking for solutions for the dials. It's a wheel, specifically a ship wheel. This could be a reference to Tyler washing up on Fort Oasis in his boat. The wheel being the one dial missing, symbolizing how he stumbled here by complete accident, lost on sea. Alternatively, it could also symbolize a loss of control. The wheel he was using to steer himself to safety is now gone. The solution for the puzzle is really easy. All you have to do is explore the area and look for the right graffiti pointing in the direction you need to twist the dial to. And once you solve it, you're dropped into a corridor full of brutes that you've got no chance of killing.
Alright.
This time you don't even have the illusion of being able to fight back since your pickaxe is already broken. So the game is really just screaming at you to run away. When you escape the chase, exactly the same as the original, you get your first transmission.
You've come here to find something. I believe it is something we have both desired for a long time. Your presence in this place means that you are willing to do what I ask of you. If you follow my requests, I will take you to what it is that you desire.
One major thing you notice about his voice acting is he actually sounds like a human, with emotions and personality in his dialogue. Not that the one in the original didn't have personality, but it definitely came off as more inhuman, never breaking inflection and always speaking in a monotone manner.
A storm is approaching. That storm is almost here. There's no outrunning it now.
The remake version, meanwhile, frequently changes his tone.
There. The first valve. Turn it.
Sometimes even going as far as to get angry at the player when you defy him.
What are you doing? Turn back. You missed the valve.
It sells the voice on the radio much better as someone trying to aggressively convince you to listen to him. But if you still miss the old version of the voice, the devs actually added in an option to toggle the retro voice acting, which replaces all of the game's dialogue with re-recordings from the original voice actor. Same effects and all.
They will attempt to hinder our progress. They are forgotten leftovers of a time long past. They were never meant to linger here.
The rest of the chapter plays out very similar to the original. The only real gameplay difference being that you aren't actually given another melee weapon while you're searching for the Underhalls key. So when you start being chased by the Drifter, a floating enemy that probably has the lowest health pool in the game, but the trade-off being it closes distances incredibly quickly, your first instinct will probably be to just run away and try evading them in claustrophobic corridors. Especially because of the fact that if you walk into one of the side rooms while it's dashing at you, it can completely body block you and force you to take multiple bars of damage. But I'll let you in on a little secret. If you happen to pick up one of these pristinely preserved bottles of alcohol, you can straight up one-shot him instead by throwing it at him, as the electrical aura around him immediately sets the pure ethanol covering his entire body on fire.
Although it does make it that much weirder that you still can't make Molotovs from just alcohol and rags. I mean, come on, it sets on fire just right. So the bit I did in the original video, it doesn't even work anymore.
After you get to the Underhalls, there's one major mechanic change that you might have noticed already when you opened your inventory. There's no crafting menu anymore. Instead, if you want to craft anything, it has to be at a specific crafting bench.
It follows in these same principles as the changes made to saving, taking away your ability to do it on command, to, add a bit of challenge and risk to the game, making you plan for the future, while also giving you these moments of respite where you finally reach another safe room and can prepare for the way ahead. These are safe areas, just like the save points, so you don't have to worry about a Last of Us 2 jump scare.
Bravo, Neil Druckmann. The actual crafting system is basically the same as the original mod, although now you won't be told explicitly what an item can be combined with, instead having to find crude drawings of what items can be crafted together. But as you find more recipes, you'll realize just how much more expanded crafting is in this game. Most of the original weapons are still in the game, with complicated recipes such as put handle and head together. Yeah, I really couldn't have came up with that one myself. But in the remake, you also get access to crackhead engineering, which just comes down to gluing random shit to everything. Is your brick not doing enough damage? Just add scissors. Your wrench, maybe it sucks because it now has the durability of pretty much every single weapon and doing no damage. Just add a butcher's knife and some barbed wire and tie it all together. Or if you really don't care, take a piece of rebar and put it on a pole. It's one of the heaviest weapons in the game, but it actually does insane damage. But when I say the drawings are crude, I mean really crude. Some of them bordering on being illegible. They're all dirtied from being left on Fort Oasis too long, some even having tears, mug stains, like whoever was crafting these spent a long time devising them.
But that's not even the main issue. Even the clean ones can be impossible to read right. For example, most weapon recipes require specific handles, of which there are multiple different types, and they all look exactly the same on drawings. Other times, it's just really hard to tell what items it wants you to combine, so you'll have to throw random things at the crafting bench until it works.
There's also the case of the axe recipe, which looks completely simple. It's just an axe and a handle. Except that doesn't actually work. What you're missing is this faded, almost invisible drawing of a bottle of wood glue to the side, conveniently placed next to a hole in the paper. So it just looks like smudges when you first look at it.
At least once you have the recipe, you can hover over items to see what you can make out of them, so you don't have to keep going through the drawings every single time. And also on repeat playthroughs, if you remember the schematics, you'll be able to create them before finding the recipe, although to stop you from metagaming and stomping on every enemy, certain items to make late game weapons never appear in the opening chapters. Also, unfortunately, unlike Darkwood, you can't actually upgrade the workbench in this game, despite the wrench being described as used for tightening and the obvious wrench icons at the bottom of the workbench. I know this because I tried doing it and got immediately called brain dead by my chat.
Wait a minute. Can I drag the wrench into there? It says a heavy wrench suitable for tightening. You've got these icons here. I thought you could like put it in there. How am I brain dead, dude? That's the description of the weapon. Look,
Dude, you should see that clip. It's so sad. It's me dragging and dropping the wrench for like 20 seconds and chat's like, you fucking...
Asparagus!
Now that you get a pickaxe, the rest of the chapter is pretty straightforward. Nothing insane, and that's it for Arrival. This chapter again follows very closely to the Decay chapter from the mod. Your instructions are basically the same. You have to reach the storage room near the graveyard for the key to progress. At the start, you also get a blueprint for the glass and metal shivs, both literally the definition of makeshift. They're weak, primary only, meaning that you can't use any stun-locking charged attacks, and they also break super quickly. But on the other hand, they cost very little to make, basically just some tape and something sharp. So at least you'll have something to throw at your enemies when your rocks inevitably ricochet out of the map. As you move through the Underhalls and reach the blue block door, the voice on the radio actually elaborates more on the Forgotten Ones before giving you your task.
They will attempt to hinder our progress. They are forgotten, leftovers of a time long past. They were never meant to linger here. We'll need a key to bypass this door. Head to the graveyard nearby. There's a storage room hidden there.
I honestly can't compare the map design here to the original. No, I mean, I literally can't, because it's such a labyrinth I can barely tell where I'm going. What matters is the level still has the same feel, being a complete maze you'll lose yourself in incredibly quickly. Even if you find the map there, even though it's much more readable now, still kind of sucks for navigating. But it does at least lure you into exploring more thoroughly with outright telling you something obvious, like there's a shotgun to be found here, and spooky monsters here, and most of the maps are enclosed enough that you'll never really miss anything if you're exploring. Definitely refreshing from the incredibly subtle ways some games like to guide players.
Tornado of retardation.
I don't get it.
Anyway, no matter where you go, just like in the original, you're going to fall into the spider nest. The spiders themselves actually got a small change to their combat in the remake as well. Remember how in the original, if you got hit by one with one of their ranged attacks, it was essentially game over because it would keep you stuck in place while they'd pummel you to death? Well, that's been completely reworked. Now, when they spit at you, it won't affect your movement, but you'll be blinded for a few seconds. Your entire screen looks like being one-shot in any Call of Duty campaign on Veteran, while the spider that hit you enrages and rushes towards you for a quick attack. It feels much more balanced because, again, you're not just marked for death from getting hit once. If you time it right, you can actually block the spider's attack from audio cues. And even better, if your timing is that good, you can actually parry the actual web it shoots at you. Spiders have always been useless in video games. Like that one time Spider-Man got wall-banged by a fridge. I mean, at least their nest has a lot of really good items to actually reward exploring it, like the Beast brand MRE, which is probably made by the same company that made that family-friendly energy drink, I Am Fucked Up. That's a real drink, by the way. It was all over Sweden for some reason.
The MREs, although rare, are still the best food item in the game, giving you almost a full bar of hunger and 3 full bars of boost. But it still yields to one of the rarest findable foods in the game, the good bread. That is so good, man.
Which is hidden in the room locked behind that lever sequence where every single spider in the nest aggroes the second you press it. Because the moldy bread has no negative effects already, the regular fresh loaf of bread has to compensate, and it's actually so tasty and so full of nutrients, it's basically a healing item. But the greatest improvement out of all of it, it doesn't look French anymore. French! Overall, opening the optional room, despite aggroing everything in existence, is really worth it, since you also get the recipe and components for a sledgehammer. A really good two-handed weapon you can also immediately upgrade with tape for better durability. Or you can stick on some barbed wire for more damage. It one-taps crates, two-taps enemies, and the heavy attack has such a big arc, it can sometimes hit multiple enemies at once. You'll keep the head once it breaks, but as long as you have a steady supply of poles, it can really carry you through the next chapters. One more thing, you also get the Miller's Key, which if you backtrack, you can use to open the stash and get yourself the very first firearm, a shotgun. I mean, there's not much to say about it. You know, it's a shotgun in a survival horror game, and it's not Doom 3, so it's actually usable. But this being a bonus weapon you only get through finding it in the stash means you're not going to be getting any more ammo for it for quite a while. But the trade-off is, it at least sounds better than shotguns in other video games. Also, a little side note, it still has the right-click infinite durability melee that it had in the original. But now the devs actually made it, so it does no damage. And especially, it does completely nothing to crates. Meaning, you can't just get free crate openings the second you find your first gun. It even gives you a pop-up every time you hit an object with it, just to remind you that it's completely pointless. This even got extended to some of the lighter melee weapons, like the shivs. Which, it would, to be fair, make zero sense how taped together glass could break apart a sturdy wooden box. Although, unlike the shotgun melee, they will eventually break open crates if you hit them enough. You'll just probably sacrifice a third of your durability for it. What you should really do instead is deposit it in one of Australia's many knife bins that cost the taxpayer $13 million and immediately stopped all violent crime overnight. If you explore a deeper part of the nest, you can also find another hidden room with more items and a recipe to make a hook shiv, which is another primary weapon that it kind of sucks. Cruelty Squad, D tier. It can sometimes stun lock enemies, but again, it's a small one-handed weapon. It has no charged attack, so you'll probably end up trading. But it's not all bad. At least now you get the return of the king, the gas cooker.
And I'm sorry to report, it has been nerfed. It's no longer infinite use, only letting you cook 10 or so meals before running out of fuel, which you can't replace. Honestly, this is fine for me. At least it doesn't give you that fear of missing out when you have to leave it behind because it's too heavy. And it doesn't make you feel like you need to backtrack for it every single time there's a can of tuna on the floor just to hit your protein goals.
It also weighs a lot less this time, only being 2 kilograms. So if you do want to carry it with you, it's not nearly as much of a commitment as it was in the original. But most importantly, with radiation gone, cooking food isn't actually necessary anymore since you can regularly get by on rotting bread. Now, it's pretty much just a bonus instead of a necessity. But it does go into that positive feedback loop I mentioned earlier, where eating actual good food gives you other bonuses, like healing you or maybe even boost. It feels a lot more rewarding this way, and it makes it feel like you're actually on top of the game rather than simply getting by, because, you know, you took the time to actually explore optional areas. After the spider nest, you can finally go outside, where you can find yet another major improvement in storytelling. Discord voice notes left by random people that you can play through the tape player, which you seem to carry with you everywhere.
Can't beat the view up here.
Sure, but why here? It's a little morbid, isn't it?
You have to look beyond this. Beyond the island. Nothing beats the sunset here.
That note that you gave me from before. What was that all about?
I don't want to talk about that now. Just, I want to enjoy this. Just for a little longer.
Now, even though this is a great addition and a very organic way of telling the story, my chat had a serious problem with it.
Tyler, for some reason I'm recording a message on the fucking tape recorder and stashing it in a graveyard instead of just talking to you. It's no wonder you left me, since I apparently have severe communication issues and spend all my money on tapes.
It's really nice getting to put a voice to the names instead of just finding random old notes. And it even amps the suspense when you hear the male voice in the recording sound eerily similar to the voice on the radio, who actually comments on the recording after it finishes.
There's nothing left to be said about her. Some things are best left forgotten.
At the graveyard, there's still the same Lurger P08 pistol that you find at the farthest point. The only issue is you'll still have to deal with a unique enemy patrolling the graveyard. And much like the original, the voice warns you how it's pointless even going down there. Unlike the original, when it attacks, you never see its real form, but it still has the same weaknesses as the mod. That being, its audio getting louder when it gets closer and also one-tapping any crates near it. If you're quick enough to get the pistol or use the shotgun, it's incredibly easy to take down. And then on top of that, you can safely loot the rest of the graveyard. After the graveyard, the storage room where you needed to go itself got reworked into being an actual puzzle instead of just a place to jump scare you with enemy spawns. You have to line up these ornaments to create a symbol on the canvas. It's all pretty simple and just combines some simple crafting, finding the proper pieces, some tape, and then fiddling around with the placements until they look correct. You can see the symbol you're supposed to make on one of the gravestones, alongside ones related to nautical travel, like the ship's wheel again. The real challenge of the puzzle is actually finding the mechanisms you're supposed to use, since they're all placed on walls and perfectly blend in with the Underhalls scenery that you're used to. But once you solve it, you get the blue block key, as well as a recipe for a weapon called the Splitter. No association with the enemies in the Time Splitters franchise. It's basically a lead pipe with scissors and some metal shards taped onto it. If you didn't get the sledgehammer, it's a pretty decent replacement for it. And it also gives the scissors a use, since you're probably carrying some in your inventory that you wouldn't know what to do with them. I mean, there are other video games where you could use the scissors, like Postal 2. Video on that coming out never.
Here I was minding my own business, just enjoying my Second Amendment rights.
So if you're running low on weapons, you can keep it at the edge of breaking just to get a completely fresh one when you find a workbench.
This got patched out when I played the original build of the remake. You could actually skip this puzzle entirely by just not dropping down and taking the stairs instead.
That's probably just a shortcut. Just like the original, the way to the blue block door is now full of enemies, all playing scary audio stingers whenever they spot you. Thankfully, you don't have to backtrack through the spider nest, since there's a shortcut that you can now open with the key. There's also another audio log, reiterating an old note from the original.
Mr. Scott, as you requested from last week's visit, I followed up on treatment options. The community at Fort Oasis is still young, so unfortunately we do not have the required equipment here for your treatment. Most patients I see with similar conditions are usually referred to see a doctor back on the mainland. I understand you have a preference to stay. Sadly, this is all I can recommend. Feel free to drop in any time this week. I have a few options I could speak to you about.
When you make it through the blue block door roll-up, the voice in the radio starts speaking again, this time warning you.
I should have known. She was gonna show up eventually. Waiting in the darkness. Waiting to rip you apart when you least expect it.
You can also find a note next to the record player with a message from Tyler to Lita.
Lita, why are you leaving? You didn't say anything was wrong. Everything was going perfectly. You can't just back up and leave me here without any explanation. I feel after everything we have been through, this is a stab in the back. I love you. Does that not mean anything? Why can't I be normal? Fucking useless.
There's also an old decayed painting on the wall, possibly of Lita. Oh my god, I really hope that's not AI art. Wait, let me message the developer real quick. No, oh, thank god. No, we're good. The video's still on, we're good. Once you go into the next room and close the valve, the door shuts behind you. Your character starts breathing quickly, being given a new stat, Panic. which shakes your screen more than Markiplier in the last 5 minutes of the Iron Lung movie, and also stops you from being able to dodge entirely. Then you quickly realize what's making Tyler so panicked. This is again a retread of that same section in the original,
where you're chased by a monster, presumably symbolizing leader. You can't kill it. Like, believe me, I've tried.
If it gets close, it will instantly explode, one-shotting you. But it can only move when you're not watching it. Not an original concept by any means. I mean, you know, pretty much any horror streamer slop of the month has similar mechanics. Which I'm pretty sure they all yoinked from that one Doctor Who episode with the Weeping Angels. But it's still interesting how the game nerfs you here, so you have to play by its rules. With you not being able to dodge, the map changes, giving both you and the enemy advantages. Most items you'll need to progress will be stuck in dead ends with only a single pillar to loop the enemy around. But at the same time, you're given pipes that you can release pressure from, which blocks it off from chasing you for a brief moment to make some space. In the original, you could kill these enemies by spending half of China's ammunition supply, which was basically never worth it. You could also bait the explosion out around corners, narrowly avoiding the nuclear explosion with half a centimeter of concrete. Sadly, this seems pretty much impossible now. So, as horrible as it is to say, you might have to play the game the way the developer intended. But you know what? For all your time and effort, here's a neat little cutscene as you try and close the door, where she runs up and tries to pry it open before it shuts right in her face. Thankfully, saving you from having to interact with a woman. Me personally, I can't talk to women. That's why I watch kick streamers do it instead. Afterwards, you're rewarded with a CSTM pill.
These used to be in the original as well, usually as the highest tier of loot, only finding a few in the game, and most of them being in secret or optional areas, being one of the few permanent upgrades for your character as they increase your stamina and carry capacity. With how much I've mentioned with inventory management and stamina both being incredibly crucial already, you can imagine how powerful these pills are. And with the remake, you get them semi-regularly as regular progression rewards, but again, mostly as secrets in a way to let you carry more items with you for the later, more challenging encounters.
Apparently the dev doesn't even know what CSTM means. I assumed it'd be some kind of new peptide influencers take with, you know, absolutely no downside or side effects.
You do meth. Yeah.
But with your pills popped, you can move on to the next chapter.
Thank you, Chinese Letters, for joining. I don't know what your name is.
Forgotten begins exactly the same as it did in the original. You're soon introduced to the Darkwood Chomper enemy, who actually got a new mechanic in the remake, as it'll now eat whatever you throw at it, getting stun-locked while it attempts to digest 4 bottles of 100% clear-proof spirit. You could even throw a can of prime 30 grams of protein into its maw. Then it'll immediately spit it out because he realized they recently did a collaboration with Rakai, who I assume took time out of his day learning how to read basic English.
5 gifted. Thank you for the 5 gifted. You got to say,
don't know why he's trying to eat the book. Calm down, mate. And if you throw two-handed weapons at it, they'll actually get lodged between its jaws, limiting its attacks to just pathetic swinging. Just make sure the pickaxe you're throwing away isn't your only weapon. Soon after, you end up on the surface, with the storm raging outside now in full view. Again, showing off just how good the remake looks in the new engine.
You see that path along the cliffside? Worn and crumbling. That is the fastest way to reach your resolve.
The note, originally a leftover message from Leader talking about reconnecting after Tyler moved to the mainland, is now replaced with a bloodied note.
They're not gone. They left me. Everyone left me. They won't let me find her.
Now, back in the original, you'd go and explore the surface of Fort Oasis, but in the remake, you instead fall down into an old basement. There's no obvious way out. Every possible exit is locked.
What's if I go down there? I thought it was like Minecraft rules. Like 1 block of water, you'd be fine.
As you walk around, you'll start finding boxes of prescribed medication. The item description reads, "A box of pills. Symptoms can cause brain shivers. I have a strong feeling I should take these." Something Minecraft YouTuber would shamelessly steal 4 years prior. Look, I know he took the video down, but why when he cries, it looks like wax melting. They're marked as healing items, but have a hidden drawback of increasing your madness, a feature new to the remake. When you pick up the third box, there's even graffiti behind it, telling you how if you take the pills, all of this will go away. The voice on the radio also starts talking to you about them.
Those pills in your backpack. I know you don't want to take them, but we may need a fresh perspective to get back on track. You could take them, and for a while, all of this would fade away.
You're given literally no choice here, and you have to take them. You can try to wait it out, but the voice on the radio will pick up on your apprehension and then use it against you.
You really don't want to take those pills, do you? Waiting it out won't solve this.
Once you take them, you realize the fresh perspective only makes everything seem worse. The walls around you become flesh, the concrete structure's barely holding on. Your character starts blinking frantically, and you can hear your own panic breath. The environment changes. A new tunnel opens up in the flesh after you blink.
Salami.
The voice on the radio tells you to just push through, but soon after, you start hearing another voice.
Whatever happens, keep moving.
Hey, did you want to meet her?
After you make it through the tunnel, you reach another record player, which lets you ground yourself, bringing you back to reality. This mechanic is called Madness. It was planned in the original mod, but didn't make it in due to engine limitations. In the remake, it only shows up at certain points when you either find the prescribed medication or start losing it because of whatever's happening around you. Madness never goes away on its own. You'll have to ground yourself by playing a record at a save point, bringing Tyler back to baseline, but at the cost of losing optional paths around you, which could have supplies or even more important items. After, you can see some more graffiti. Where are you, Daddy? We waited. What? Oh my fuck. I did not want to read that out loud. Fucking hell. When you power up the elevator and start making it back to explore the surface, you hear a child crying ahead of you.
It's the Dementia song.
You can find some children's toys in the vent as well, and as you move forward, you can see a figure quickly making its escape. Despite you not being in Madness anymore, you hear more dialogue from the same woman from earlier.
She wants to play. How about hide and seek? You always loved to run.
When you're finally riding the elevator, the voice on the radio calls to you again, telling you not to listen.
It's all a game. She's just waiting for you to find her. And playing into it won't get you anywhere. Ignore this, all of it. We don't need another distraction.
Outside, you can find another returning weapon, the harpoon gun.
Oh my god, the harpoon. This gun is cinema.
In the original, it kind of sucked, as the gun itself as well as ammo are both incredibly heavy. Its single shot takes about 5 years to reload and doesn't even do enough damage to one-shot a dog. Generally just a burden to carry around. The only actual advantage here is the bolts don't actually have any durability.
What the? Give me that.
So if you never shoot a harpoon into the stratosphere on accident, it's a reliable way to always have a ranged attack.
I just lost a harpoon.
It's best used as a way to either finish up weaker enemies or initially do damage so you can close the gap with melee combat. You can also poke enemies to death with the melee attack, but it takes about 3 to 5 business days, so I wouldn't even bother. It makes sense, this weapon being here, as Fort Oasis was an isolated island, and fishing was probably a side business for the people on the island to naturally catch food for themselves instead of having to rely on imports.
One funny thing about the harpoon gun, though, is that if by some miracle you manage to cheat in unlimited ammo, you'll find out it's actually full auto for some reason, and with a pretty good fire rate as well. So yeah, I guess if you're cheating, this might actually be the best gun in the game. As you explore the surface more, you keep hearing a child just in the next room.
Partial chaos. What's the social issue in this game a commentary on? Well, if you hear the baby crying, you are a deadbeat dad. And you don't want to pay your welfare.
The woman also keeps speaking to you.
We're still hiding. Wait
There's a couple recipes to be found here, like the small sledgehammer, which is just a sledgehammer with a short handle. Perfect for anyone under 6 foot to use. It still lets you do a heavy attack, so it's not a bad trade-off if you don't have a full-length pole lying around. And also the blueprint for your first compound combination. The ready-to-use colored syringes from the original game don't spawn anymore, but the primary compounds for mixing are still in the game, that being blue, red, and green. Now you just have to find recipes to know what effects each combination has and make it yourself using a syringe, which you'll have plenty of because the devs heard my prayers from the original video and finally made stim packs leave empty syringes. I mean, for some reason in the original mod, when you tried to use a stim pack, Tyler would just eat the syringe afterwards, so you'd have to find empty ones in the world. They still work similar to the original compound syringes, having completely broken effects like full healing, eliminating hunger, or filling up your boost, but being balanced out by their side effects, like the boost injection making you hungry, or the hunger injection immediately making you heavily bleed. Again, feeding into the resource cycle kept over from the original, except now you can also find recipes for more advanced combinations, using 3 compounds instead of 2, which stabilize the injection and eliminate their side effects completely.
Which isn't a very high price, considering you can find these compounds in every other storage room, meaning you're only really gatekept by knowing the recipes, since the combined mixture never actually tells you what it does until you use it.
Right after the room with the compound recipe, there's also the first instance of my least favorite enemy in the game. So this thing, it's the equivalent of any Five Nights at Freddy's game personified into a single door.
Skibbity toilet. Skibbity toilet. Oh, no, piss off.
That'll open up and scream at you, only to shut afterwards, usually damaging you. Even worse, they'll bait you near them with items just to completely jump scare you and make you repeatedly take damage, since the jump scare probably threw your mouse off the item you were trying to pick up.
This is a repeat of the Tom Hardy, that's bait. Can I get it without being jump scared? Okay, anyways.
Apparently, being killed by these is a rare achievement. Only 5% of people died to one, while nearly 20% of people actually beat the game. Just before you're about to make it out of the area, you're stopped just before you get onto the flimsy wooden scaffolding in a cutscene.
Attention! A local impact is imminent. Clear the impact zone immediately.
You'll have to reach the upper districts to go on. There's a different path we can take. Buried in the rock, deep below us, is a prison. Down there is a surface elevator we can use to ascend. No longer can we avoid her, I fear, and I have no doubt she'll be waiting for you down there. So you'll need a weapon more conventional. Before heading to the prison, head to the police station. There you'll find an armory. We need this to proceed.
You can't avoid the memory of your wife and daughter anymore. Instead, just like the original, you have to get ready to deal with them. Wait a minute, that was too serious. How do I drench that statement in irony for Zoomers? Okay. No longer can you avoid the memory of your foid and chud child. Instead, you'll have to undergo Second Amendment right maxing to avoid a career-ending cortisol spike. But make sure you stock up on food, because if you're a dinner cell, your stamina bar will be frame mugged by your wife, who's already 6 to 7 times. I'm not doing that. Look, I'm going to be honest here. The current language meta is probably about 2% better than 2016, back when everyone was spamming the N-word. The police station is another spider nest you'll have to hack through. And right next to the entrance, you can find another tape to listen to.
Hey, it's Ryan. Just reaching out again. It doesn't feel right having you absent from the list. Alice and I are still waiting to hear back about the anniversary party. It's been 5 weeks now, and not a word. Is everything okay over there? Look, we get that you're going through a lot. If that's the reason, just let us know. We'd understand. But the silence... It's got us all a little worried. Please, call back soon.
This is simply a reading of the same note you could find in the original mod, but again, having it voiced adds a lot more character to Ryan and makes his concerns seem that much more genuine.
One major thing you may have noticed that was missing in the remake were flares. And honestly, thank God. There's no more randomly spread around dark rooms to traverse in. You know, like having to stock up on flares and then save them for later. Instead, the game just gives you an infinite use lighter, which, despite looking like it's about to fall apart, lights up an entire room with just that tiny little flame. Like most things on the island, it was crafted in the finest Temu Chinese sweatshops, having a chance for the flame to extinguish when you dash, or being blown out when you stand next to air ducts from a strong air current. This seems like a cool feature, but it can be detrimental for later areas that insist that you keep that light source available. Next to where you get the lighter, there's also a completely sealed room with a police vest inside. Yep, you see it? No, you can't get it. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there is no jumping in the game, and there's even a huge hole in the back that in most games you'd be able to enter because of the sacred technique of the crouch jump, but here it is completely forbidden. The police station itself is a series of fuse puzzles. Not even really puzzles, more just taking a fuse, putting it into a box to open a door, and then pulling it out to keep on you to use for the next door. Honestly, I can't even complain too much about it, since it's at least better than having to backtrack half the game for fuses, which a certain Swedish game did. That is until you get to opening the door to the armory. As the moment you pull the lever to get the last fuse, you finally meet with the leader. This completely flips the Total Chaos formula on its head, since stealth isn't really a thing in the original, and it's not even really a thing in the remake. But the way this section is done is genuinely really cool. You can always hear where the monster is from the child crying on its back. And it doesn't run a set predefined path either, often appearing right behind you when you enter one of the dead-end rooms you have to go in for the fuse. She'll mock you when she sees you or when she loses sight of you, letting you know that if you're in the clear or not. She seemingly navigates through sound as well, so you can't dash spam either. There's also no crouch walking or detection meter that you have to avoid, like, you know, in most stealth games. It's the really simple format of hiding behind objects to break sight. If anything, it made me feel like I was playing the original Amnesia, which is a really nice touch. Although I really would have liked a unique death animation, you know, where leader maybe catches you as opposed to the screen just really awkwardly fading to black. Actually, side note here, this was the case when I originally played the remake, but one of the updates released while I was making this video, and it actually added death animations for pretty much every single enemy in the game. Again, just shows the attention to detail the remake has. The devs could have just left it in as with this stock Lissad fade to black, but instead they went back and added a frankly insane amount of new animations, since a lot of enemies actually have multiple different ones just to emphasize getting your shit kicked in. The fuse puzzle earlier wasn't even really a puzzle. It was getting you prepared for this segment, as you now have to power various doors while dancing around leader to be able to get an additional fuse to unlock the armory. And when you do, you're rewarded with the SMG, which proves incredible at solving the problem chasing you. The SMG is based off the Sterling L2A3, made entirely out of steel and plastic. It was meant to replace the Sten gun that was used in World War II. The Sten was incredibly easy to mass produce, but had loads of faults, like the single feed magazine jamming, the build quality looking like something you could make in Roblox, and it became so unreliable with misfiring, people made jokes about throwing it into trenches instead of a grenade because the misfiring probably had a higher chance of killing someone. You know that clip where Critical gunned someone down in Siege and claimed it was a misinput? He was actually 100% correct because he was using a Sten. The Sterling L2A3 was more expensive, took longer to produce, but fixed most of the problems, like having a curved magazine so it jammed less, and was just, in general, much more reliable. And it also makes sense why we're using a gun that was produced in the 50s, because so far, nothing on Fort Oasis looks anywhere near modern. You probably didn't even notice, but Fort Oasis basically has no modern technology. Monitors look like they run Windows XP.
I'm a human being.
Electronics, if anything, are incredibly basic. We're not in the 21st century. Wait, where were we? Oh yeah. Me shoot wife now. However, shooting her instantly makes you go insane. But now it's even worse. Shapes and figures flash around you incredibly constantly. And the way you came in is now blocked. A new staircase opens up next to it, leading to a room with some supplies, as well as another note.
Dear Mr.
We are writing to confirm receipts of your application regarding the personal records of Cora Rivera. Due to privacy protections outlined under the Civil Identity and Protection Act, and in accordance with custodial discretion provisions, access to the requested information cannot be granted at this time. Please do not submit duplicate requests, as the decision is final and not subject to appeal under current circumstances. Thank you for understanding. Sincerely, M. Elwood, Records Officer, Civil Documentation Division, Clearwater. Cora isn't a name we've heard before, but the last name actually appears somewhere else, on a ferry ticket you can find before the police station, signed off to Leader Rivera. Next to the note, there's also a knife repair kit and a recipe for the rattle pole, which you make out of nails and food cans. I mean, for a makeshift weapon, it's actually pretty good. Having not much less damage than the sledgehammer, you do have to still sacrifice a full-length pole for it though, so it's somewhat pointless when you can just make a new sledgehammer with the unbreakable head instead. That's because when a weapon breaks, you only lose the shaft, never the head attached to it. To exit, you have to do another fuse puzzle, but if you explore around, you'll find a way back into the entrance of the station. And in your madness state, you'll finally be able to reach that police armor. It's only 20% damage reduction, but that's still pretty good compared to, you know, nothing. It also lowers your chance of bleeding, so it's definitely worth picking up if you don't want to keep spamming bandages. There's also a recipe to be found inside for a truly amazing weapon, the Snip and Smash, also known as brick with scissors taped on it.
I wish there was more to say about it, but there really isn't. It's basically just an upgraded throwable. And to be fair, at that, it's actually really good. The same way that regular rocks or bricks are very useful as ranged weapons, with this one doing actual proper damage. It also has durability, though most likely you'll never actually break one completely, since it'll bounce off the map before you have a chance to use it that much.
There's also a sister recipe to be found later on behind another wall accessible only in Madness for the nailed rock, which is basically the same.
A throwable rock covered in nails. Beautiful.
The only difference between the two is while the brick sticks to enemies, the rock bounces off them, dealing pretty good damage, and you can also spam it about 20 times before it breaks, and is pretty good at dealing with late game enemies. It'll always hold a special place in my heart. My chat wanted me to name the pet rock. I didn't really like the suggestions very much.
We could call him Shuddy.
When you reach the prison elevator, you're introduced to a new enemy, the Licker, who, despite looking intimidating, is actually pretty pathetic. And if anything, they're just fodder for your SMG. They have very low health and even trip up on themselves when trying to attack. Although they always spawn in groups and sometimes with other enemies, so they can quickly overwhelm you if you're not careful. Push the button and it, of course, does that thing that elevators do in horror games, which is to completely break and fall down to the bottom. Elevators in horror games have about as much reliability as helicopters and shooters. You have to swim out of the flooded tunnel. Again, another mechanic that wasn't in the original. Once you get the prison master key, you find one more safe room with a record player, as well as a crafting bench with a ton of supplies. It's pretty obvious here you're being set up to fight a boss. On the table, there's also another item, Cora's bracelet. To progress, you have to input a 4-letter password on what looks like children's letter blocks. The password, of course, being Cora. Once you drop down into the arena and power up the fuse, the boss spawns behind you, now looking much different from what was chasing you down in the police station. Probably transformed after you first shot it with the SMG. Now it's flying, with tendrils coming out of where the legs should be. But you can still hear the crying even now. The voice on the radio only gives you one direction.
Don't get too close. Take care of them.
The remake's rendition of this fight is much more interesting than the original. There, you had this huge spider monster chasing you around. This version has proper attack patterns, throwing debris at you or exploding with electricity when you get too close, which somehow doesn't instantly kill you despite the entire area being covered in water. You're given infinite SMG ammo, but capped out to only give you more when you're missing reserves, so it doesn't completely throw off the game's economy. Now, you could just shoot the boss to death, but a faster way and much easier is to shoot the red pipes on the ceiling to set it on fire instead. As you damage the boss, it'll start to break open pillars, revealing fleshy figures inside, grasping at you.
Mate, can I borrow your pen?
This is the actual real way to deal damage, and once you destroy enough of them, the boss disappears.
You fought so hard not to drown, and yet here you are, dragging yourself deeper.
Despite winning, it feels completely hollow, like you really weren't supposed to do that. The music shifts to a tragic, depressing track. Another link is severed, but at least the way is clear now. On the path to the elevator, there's one more tape left for you.
Tyler? How could you say such disgusting things? I don't even know where your head is at anymore, and honestly, I don't want to. I want nothing to do with you. This was supposed to be a miracle. A gift. Why can't you see that? That there was a life we could have shared together. I don't see a way back from here. Stay away from us and get help.
Gameplay-wise, this chapter is structured exactly the same as the original. The same wall of flesh stands in your way. You have to follow basically the exact same sequence of events, exploring the apartment building, getting the Oasis goods store key, and making a Molotov with the lighter fluid you find inside, all while a storm slowly builds in the background. But the main difference is what happens around you as you do it, even right as you enter the area.
If you're hearing this, I made it. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I couldn't just let this go.
Ryan. Of course now he shows up. Only when the hard part's already done.
Ryan is the person from the reaching out tape. Back then, the note was, I think, the only real mention in the entire game. But in the remake, he's an actual character in Tyler's fantasy. You can even find a one-way ferry ticket right at the beginning, possibly belonging to him. It's honestly refreshing hearing another character reach out that isn't an old recording.
The voice, of course, responds negatively to Ryan showing up, but that's not really surprising when, same as the monster you're to fight in the last chapter, they're both just a distraction from what the voice really wants you to do.
After you find the flesh wall alongside instructions to literally sever the connections, which we now have a t-shirt of, by the way, link down in the description. Please buy, thank you. The problem is you don't have anything to set a light with, and you can't really trust your Temu lighter. So the note directs you to a place to find a Molotov cocktail schematic. You're again thrown into a nest full of spiders, sleeping for now, at least as you don't bump into one by accident. There's no point fighting them. Just like in the Chapter 1 sequence, you have to run away. Except this time, the roll-up door is locked, and even better, when you get close, the alarm rings, waking up all the spiders that haven't aggroed yet. But in that moment of need, someone comes through for you.
Hey! I'm opening the door for you! Hurry! Get in!
Oh, that was a close call. You alright? Listen, that voice you've been following, that one on the radio, I'm trying to reach him, desperately. All I want is for him to come home. Away from this god-forsaken place. Even if it's kicking and screaming. You think you're helping him. Fulfilling these little requests, these rituals. But all it's doing is locking more doors. He's disappearing. And this place, this rot, it's making sure he never finds the way back. I need to see him, face to face, for there's nothing left to see. And if your path leads the same place as mine, then maybe we can help each other.
Completely unprecedented for Total Chaos. There's actually a friendly NPC helping you out. As much as the ambient horror atmosphere can get to you sometimes, it's really refreshing to see someone else also making their way through this place. He also shifts the narrative pretty early on and basically breaks the fourth wall, telling you, by listening to that voice, you're only dragging yourself down with him. The voice on the radio, however, is completely jaded against him. Despite Ryan claiming to be here to help him, he wants nothing to do with him.
Ryan can't be trusted. It's funny how generous guilt makes people. He's not here to help us. He's here for himself. I'm just the mess he left behind. He has people, laughter, warmth, happiness. And he gets to visit my suffering like it's a fucking vacation. I'm the one who has to live here. He just passes through whenever he pleases.
Rationalizing his behavior, not even letting himself think that maybe Ryan is really here for him. This is a huge turning point in the game. Unfortunately, at the time, I could barely hear it because my TTS program broke, so Joe Biden was just having a stroke.
Hello, just wanted to take this time to
Joe, go to bed. Joe, go to bed. Joe. You're not president, Joe. Joe, you're not president anymore, Joe.
After this sequence, there's some smaller, interesting mechanical stuff to talk about as well. Like these bars that you can actually shoot through, which I'm only mentioning out of pure spite because for some reason, every other set of bars just eats your bullets instead. And there's also this little hidden secret, a wall marked with an X in the dark hallway a spider spawns from. These are usually hidden around as loot spots. In fact, they're hidden so well, I'm not actually sure if this is even the first instance of them appearing in the game. They also blend into the background really well since it's a cracked concrete wall with red paint on it. That also being in a game that almost entirely takes place in a cracked and graffitied concrete slab. And because of this, I originally thought that this was just part of the environment, like, you know, walls marked for demolition or something. To break through, you need to hit it with a full charged heavy attack from a strong weapon, something the game will constantly tell you if you shoot it by accident, leading to sometimes randomly getting a prompt, like talking about how your weapon isn't strong enough when you're emptying your magazine at enemies. Funnily enough, helping you realize on complete accident that there's a breakable wall nearby.
Behind this wall, specifically, you can get some army rations and stim packs, but later on in the game, you end up finding things like high-tier weapons, scientific medkits, ammo, and even CTSM pills.
Also, again, as a testament to how well they're hidden, there's literally another wall like this in the corridor before I found completely on accident while writing this. Though behind it, you only find Axe Head and then a rock. The axe head, while looking promising, is actually completely useless, since you actually can't make an axe out of a regular pole and you need to find a specific handle that looks almost exactly the same, except it has that, you know, little nub on the bottom. The actual item you're here for are the bolt cutters, finally letting you go back outside. They're a small mechanic in and of themselves. Right now, you have to sacrifice their limited uses to progress, but later on, you can use whatever durability is left on chained rooms. And inside these will be rare loot that you can find. The game never actually tells you this because you just assume it has infinite uses or you'll find another pair later. But if you only use it on doors you need to progress, you can actually save the extra uses for later chapters to get better loot. When you make it back outside, you can again appreciate the new graphic and audio designs as the storm rages around you, which is a huge step up from the original. The siren blaring to signal you to evacuate. Barely being able to see anything as the clouds block out the sun. It also does an amazing job giving you a sense of urgency, like you really need to get out of here and find shelter. Here, you're also reintroduced to the invisible screamer enemies. effectively serving as landmines that you can safely dismantle with a brick or your trusty nailed rock, giving throwables a use even in the mid to late game. You'll usually see these enemies later on, sometimes indicating an optional area with loot. One thing most people won't even notice is once you get close enough to one, they'll actually start to slowly drift towards you, which can easily kill you if you're not careful. In fact, once you make it inside the Fort Oasis arcade, you can find another blueprint to make your rock even more dangerous by combining it with a sack. It also has sack physics, copyrighted, trademark, badass seal of approval.
Badass seal of approval.
This lets you use it against the same psychic enemies from the original that are also introduced in the arcade, the glare. Since normally they just stop anything you throw midair and throw it back at you. Side note on the enemy as well, they're yet another reason to complement the sound design. Just how good it sounds when they block your bullets only to throw them back and ricochet off the walls. It's almost like a jump scare itself, making you feel like you're about to get hit by a stray pinging bullet off a piece of metal behind you. Glares are pretty dangerous in groups. They'll only ever spawn one at a time, but they'll usually provide support for other enemies, especially late game, throwing debris at you, forcing you to look away or get stunned, and also soaking up bullets you meant to shoot at other enemies with. But on their own, you'll notice how weak they are, frail and limping around, and they have no way of blocking physical attacks. There's also this little section where you can use a charge of your bolt cutters, but honestly, there's nothing really worth it inside. There's just some supplies like nails, barbed wire, as well as a recipe for a nailed bat, which of course, there's no bat nearby to even craft with. Spiked bat from Dead Rising 2. My beloved. Instead, in the next room, you can find something much better to serve as a melee weapon. A huge piece of rebar with bits of concrete still stuck to it. It's heavy, probably the single heaviest item in the entire game, but it has ridiculously high damage, one-tapping most regular enemies with a charged heavy attack and ragdolling them across the map. Unfortunately, it is very, very fragile.
But not that fragile.
And you can even see the concrete pieces that hold it together breaking as the durability goes down. The weapon also loses a ton of damage as they break off, becoming completely useless when you have the last load-bearing piece of concrete left. It won't make sense now, but if you have a rebar that's about to break, keep it in your inventory. You'll thank me later. When you make it to the Oasis goods store, you'll realize that you still need a key for it. But on the ground, you can find an elevator button with some instructions showing you the map of the general area, with an arrow pointing to the apartment building and writing signaling out apartment 31. When you walk outside now, the storm has fully arrived. The strong winds and rain deafening as lightning splits the sky. One cool thing to note is how most enemies you find outside in the thunderstorm are now drifters, explicitly an enemy that utilizes electricity. The apartment building is modeled very similarly to the original game, even having that big open pool area. There's also another chain door here you can find with a blueprint for the scrap spear, which is basically wood with metal and the metal's inside it, as well as another recording.
Hi, this is Leanne Mills calling. I got your message about wanting to set up a session. You know, I just want to tell you, I hear you. Reaching out, even when you're convinced it won't help, that still means something. I understand you might not believe that this is going to make a difference, but sometimes just having someone to talk to, even for a short while, can create just enough space to breathe again. I have Thursday at 3 o'clock. It's completely open. I don't have anything else going on that afternoon. It's a free time for me, and I'd be happy to share it with you. If you'd like, come on by. Door's open. Just take your time. Take care of yourself.
There seems to be a voicemail left over from a therapist setting up a first session, which only adds more tragedy to having ended up here despite seeking out help.
In a small outside section, you can find a recipe for the rebar pole, a way to recycle the club from earlier once it breaks. However, your character has no issues bending it to fit around the wooden pole. It's a decent weapon, though its primary and heavy attack do similar amounts of damage, so it might be worth trying to actually combo your hits with weaving in parries rather than just relying on spamming heavy attacks. At the end of the apartment building, you can find an elevator with only the buttons 1, 6...
I do not want chat to say a single fucking thing. I'm being genuine here. I don't want chat to say a single thing right now. That has to be on purpose. That has to be on purpose. That has to be on purpose, right? I'm shivering right now.
If you actually try checking these floors out, floor 6 has about as much content. Oh, why am I laughing? God, Jesus Christ, I'm pushing 30. Kill me. Floor 6 has about as much content as an A24 horror film. It's just a complete dead end. One can only hope that the architect who designed this didn't make it off the island before the monsters took over. Floor 7, meanwhile, is actually accessible, with doors leading to apartments and even a huge death pit balcony where you can see the apartment floors stretching down into the abyss. There's also another compound recipe you can find here, as well as some general supplies, but there's no enemies whatsoever. And you can't really make progress anywhere since the way is blocked by a door that you can't open on this side. Instead, you have to go back to the elevator and put in the number 8 button. And let me tell you, floor 8 is a nightmare. This is a repeat of the same section where you experience the average viewer of this video's worst fear. Women trying to talk to you.
Why is there multiple footsteps? Oh, I'm done. Oh, I'm done.
Look, I'm gonna be honest, all right? Call me misogynistic. I've seen the audience demographics, man. I think it's gone up 1% in about 3 years. To you guys, very happy about your transition. But we could tell when you had 1K hours on Ultra Kill and Fallout New Vegas. Although, there is a pretty simple solution here, which is cranking up the FOV to 130. So it becomes physically impossible for them to move anywhere as you grow eyes around your head. Just as long as you don't get motion sickness from the fisheye effect that happens whenever you turn around. When you make it through, you fall down to another lower floor. But you can at least see from the numbers on the walls that you're almost at apartment 31. As you enter it, someone calls from behind you.
Hey! Over here! He's spoken to you again, hasn't he? The voice on the radio. Whatever his request is, it can't be the only way forward. There may still be another way, buried deep in these walls. This is what you came for, right? Can I trust you will do the right thing? There's still someone in there. And I need to believe it's not too late to reach them.
He gives you the Oasis goods store key. As nice of him as it is to trust us, there's no way to really circumvent what the voice is asking us to do. The only way out is through that wall of flesh, and the only way to get through it is to burn it all to the ground.
In apartment 31, you can find some more supplies. The P08 pistol, if you didn't get one in the graveyard in chapter 2, as well as another tape.
Howdy, it's Wayne again. Just calling back about the room you were asking about leasing. It's short notice, but yeah, I can make it work. The room's available, a bit small and dusty, hasn't seen much use lately, but it's quiet and the radiator works, so that's a bonus. Short-term lease is fine, I've done it before. I'll leave the keys in the lockbox by the front steps. The place will be ready by the time you ship in. Hope you can make yourself at home, even if it's just for a short little while. All right, give me a ring if you need anything else.
You need to make your way back to the store, but as you go back to the elevator, you'll notice hushed voices whispering in the background, your character blinking frantically again. You've entered madness for a second time. And when you use the elevator, it again does that thing where it stops working. No matter what floor you chose, it'll take you to floor 6. The dead end, now an open wound in reality. It leads you down through barely held together architecture, platforms made out of scrap, and rooms flipped on their side. Again, a voice that isn't the radio starts speaking to you.
Hey, you work with the Coast Guards, right? That storm was like nothing I've ever seen. When I spotted your boat, I honestly didn't think anyone could have survived. Name's Ryan. Come on, I'll give you the tour.
The place is a bit rough, huh?
I thought the same when I first washed up here, but before you know it, you won't want to leave.
You wind up in a corridor with the apartment doors on the sides wide open. Inside, looking at you, are the faceless Forgotten Ones. They just stand there, judging you. As you make it to the end of the corridor, you start panicking as the wall before you turns into a face. As horrifying as it is, I can definitely see the inspiration drawn from that huge face you'd see in Silent Hill 4. Now, the Forgotten Ones turn hostile. You have no choice but to defend yourself. When you're finished with them, you run forwards, away from the hands sticking through the wall trying to catch you. You blink and wake up in the elevator again. Now the doors open straight into another flesh tunnel, leading you to a record player. You can finally ground yourself. Conveniently, you end up right in front of the store.
You can finally loot it for all it's worth, which includes a crafting blueprint for a small axe, at least letting you make use of the axe head you found earlier without needing a proper handle. Its stats are almost exactly the same as the rebar pole, but the smaller handles are much easier to come by, so it still makes as a good auxiliary weapon.
Inside the store, you also find the lighter fluid, alongside a recipe to make the Molotov and another tape.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know if I'm helping. I left him. I've regretted it ever since. Maybe this isn't even about him anymore. Maybe I just need to stop feeling like a coward. I hope it works out for him in the end.
There it is, his confession. Hope always stinks like that. Warm, nervous, and naive. Don't let him get in the way.
The voice on the radio treats this as some huge gotcha moment on Ryan. But for all it's worth, it seems like his attempts to help were taking a toll on his own mental health. He felt guilty for giving up, but he had to draw a boundary eventually. As you move to the wall of flesh, he even speaks to you again, apologizing, saying he's also made mistakes, but what choice do you even have? You did all of this to finally get that Molotov, and the only way to the end of the level is through that wall of flesh. As you make it outside, the storm's past. The sun's shining, creating this oddly peaceful atmosphere considering what you're about to do. When you make it to the flesh growth, another faceless figure appears in front of you, holding a knife. A figure reminiscent of Ryan who helped you earlier. With no choice left and the voice screaming at you to do it, you burn everything.
He came here for closure. Now he has it. This place, it remembers you. And it's not finished with you yet.
As you enter the graveyard, you find another note in front of the obelisk.
Hello, TS. Thanks for returning the paperwork. I've extended your lease to the end of 89. Really glad you can stay with us longer, even though we haven't seen much of you lately. I will try to make more of an effort to connect now that you're staying put. Please do come say hello if you're walking past. Grab a beer. My door is always open. Wayne.
Another note from Wayne, who, despite being the most despicable form of life in society, that being a landlord, he might actually be a redeemable human being with the way the note's written, trying to reach out to Tyler. There's also a small Resident Evil style puzzle here. You might notice these small wind vanes peppered around the top of structures. If you shoot one of them, you'll get the message, 3 remaining. And if you shoot all 4, a platform will drop down, letting you grab the miner's armor. There is a few of these exact puzzles dotted all around the game, which, if anything, reminded me of shooting glowing treasure in Resident Evil 4. There's even one in the Storm chapter that I didn't mention until now, but it doesn't really give you anything unique, just some pretty decent loot. Meanwhile here, the armor is a huge improvement on the police vest because it blocks 50% of damage and lowers bleed risk even more. Though, of course, as a trade-off, it weighs an entire 4.3 kilograms.
Back in the original, you would have only found this in later chapters, but honestly, it's not really a game-breaking improvement. 50% is a lot, and it's nice not to be bleeding out, but the armor will get worn down pretty quickly if you keep tanking hits on it. And because of its weight, you're basically setting yourself up only to take more damage.
Fittingly, after finding the minor armor, you also get introduced to the minor enemy straight after, a heavily armored version of the Brute. He carries multiple weapons and is pretty well armored. His main weak spot is actually the gas tank on his back. You can stun him and he'll bend over, so you can hit the tank on his back, or you can shoot it, but either way, it's not an instant kill. That's because he's loaded out with the Martyrdom perk, so he'll still walk towards you, or sometimes even try throwing the gas tank towards you before it explodes. Fortunately, it takes a while for it to actually explode, so it's fairly easy to dodge. And the explosion has friendly fire enabled, so you can actually bait him to throw it at other enemies and one-shot them. I've even seen instances where he'll take the gas can off, throw it, it'll just bounce back, he'll do nothing, and then just kill himself anyway. When you kill one, he'll also drop all the weapons he's carrying, but, you know, for the sake of balancing, they're all nearly completely broken. So you can't really cheese infinite weapons this way. At least it's an easy way to get the axe head if you missed it in the last chapter. As you're looking for a key to progress, there's a packet of high-dose medication you can find on one of the shelves next to some graffiti. 6 chances to set things right. Once you pick it up, the door shuts behind you and you're forced to take it since there's no way out. This again propels you into madness, although at least you're immediately rewarded by being able to grab that otherwise inaccessible revolver. Again, a revolver has 6 cylinders, so 6 chances to set things right makes a lot more sense. While the revolver in BioShock was based off the British Webley, this is based off the M1917, both of which were actually used in World War I. The M1917 was adopted by Colt and Smith & Wesson. You can see that this one belongs to Colt with the engraving on the barrel. While you inspect it, it's rusted and damaged, more than any other guns you've used. Barely able to get the cylinder open to check the chambers. The M1917 used moon clips, which were these small metal sheets placed inside to hold bullets together, so removing them was quicker, and also reloading if you had the technique, which in-game you seem to have. Fort Oasis has seen a lot of time periods preserved here, much like how in Far Cry 3 you'd find bunkers from Japanese soldiers who kept fighting 29 years after World War II. It does look incredibly similar to the revolver you'd use in Amnesia the Bunker, but that was a Model 1892 revolver, which was unfortunately French. When you pick it up, the room shifts in a single moment. And honestly, it's pretty easy to spend a while just going around in circles because the way to progress is quite easy to miss. It's these chains right above the roll-up door which you have to shoot. I mean, to be fair, I can see the effort from the dev's perspective to make them visible. Like, there's even some light fixtures right above, which is the Total Chaos equivalent of using yellow paint. But the thought of having to waste ammo to break them put me off for so long, thinking they were just part of the environment. I mean, I'm basically a game journalist at this point, right? Like, complain about yellow paint, and then I get stuck when there's no yellow paint. Yellow paint! Once you make it through the door, you can hear a woman's voice.
All right, Mr. Scott. Just relax your arm. This will only take a moment.
You need to keep breaking sets of chains to progress. As you make it through the next door, you stand face to face with a group of figures.
Seemingly completely immobile as they're connected to the ceiling by fleshy tendrils. You can't kill them and they don't react to anything you do, so all you can really do is move on past them.
The room you drop down into has even more of them. But now, when you pass some, they immediately disconnect from the ceiling and start attacking you. Again, to you, it's just another obstacle you have to kill.
One interesting thing about these enemies is that they seem to use the same voice lines as the Forgotten Ones, suggesting that they might represent the same thing.
Once you do, you enter a concrete tube, and for the first time, your character actually talks out loud, responding to the voices speaking to him.
Feels like it's already done.
This is you talking, not a voice on the radio or a flashback or an old tape recorder. The next room has another chain puzzle, but it highlights a bigger problem with firearms in the game, which is that they are horribly inaccurate. You can have your crosshair exactly on the chain, fire multiple times, and somehow miss every shot, especially the revolver. For some reason, it's the most inaccurate weapon. Even the SMG spray will probably catch the chain quicker than the revolver, basically having about as much consistency as the Fedora Man perk in Fallout. When you finally break the chains, a pit in the ground opens for you to jump in. Once you fall down, you realize there's no way out. As you look behind you, a huge needle bursts in. filling the room with blood, almost drowning you. Total Chaos doesn't feature swimming mechanics. You'll just sink straight to the floor. Before you run out of air, you partially wake up out of the delusion in the same storage room you entered from. The way out is wide open, and you can just go back to the record player and ground yourself.
This entire segment was completely optional, by the way, or just to get the revolver. I'm sure if you did it again, you'll probably get like a red dot sight and a suppressor when they eventually update this game.
When you get outside, you get to watch your main path forward yet again being destroyed.
They've destroyed the bridge to the north. There's only one way to the mine now, to the catacombs below, but they're flooded. You'll have to drain them. There's a pump station on the eastern wing through the forest.
It's a nice set piece, but unfortunately, it's really missing those flat explosion MP4s from the original. You get another blueprint for a lead pipe with a butcher knife tied to it, and again sent off to find the pump station. Butcher's knives become more common at this point, doing slightly more damage than the survival knife. They're great at stun-locking enemies with rapid attacks. But this is where the remake heavily builds on the original, as before you can even reach the pump station, you'll have to make your way through the library. To find the keys, you'll have to keep exploring around it, which in itself is very rewarding as there's a lot of good loot strewn around, like a hunger buster pill lying on the floor, which completely wipes your hunger and stops it even progressing for a good while. I assume this is the 4 Oasis version of Ozempic or something. Also in this area is another wind vein puzzle, which if you complete opens a hangar door down below. Inside is my beloved, the returning armor from the first game, the weight skeleton. Finally, I can hoard more food and healing items that I'll never end up using.
It gets claustrophobic at times.
Behind that hangar door, you can also find a record called Last Call. And when you put it into the nearby record player, you can hear a beautiful alternate soundtrack. These little blue records are hidden around the game, letting you have at least a bit more reassurance with new music rather than the same Prohibition song over and over again. The blue records also don't fade out over time, giving you that genuine feel of a safe zone with the music playing until you save. As you keep exploring, you'll eventually stumble down into another underground area, reminiscent of the Underhalls. There's some good loot to be found here, like an ammo stash or an axe handle, right next to the shitty axe recipe.
There's also another ringing phone, but when you pick it up, it's just static on the other end, with some breathing and moaning sounds, the exact same from the original. There's also another tape to pick up.
Moving forward, you'll eventually reach another industrial building, but while exploring it, you'll find the key missing from its pedestal.
The key you're looking for is fractured, but the fragments should be nearby. Security measures have shut this facility down. I'll try to get the grid started up again from my end.
This entire section is basically one huge dark room. You'll probably want to have your lighter out at all times, but as the lighter is old and damaged, it tends to just go out. You scramble to turn your lighter back on, again, just in time. Right now, it's the only thing standing between you and whatever those things are. Every time it goes out, all you can see are their glowing eyes getting closer incredibly quickly. And it will go out again a lot since, again, it's very old. I mentioned before how you can't even dash with it since that disturbs the flame too much. But this entire facility is also full of air vents and leaky pipes that will one-shot your flame and leave you for dead if you don't get it back on time.
It feels incredibly tense having to try to work out where to go in an area like this, especially since the lighter isn't all that bright either. You can't always quite see where you're going, and when it goes out and acts almost like a mini jump scare, since you know full well you have to react as quickly as possible to try and spike it again.
This whole section is really, really good, but I do have one small complaint about it, in that there's a lot of death pits, especially considering it's so dark, you can kind of just fall into them. But if you pay attention, there's also places that look like where you're supposed to go. Like the hole in the middle casts such a weird shadow, I thought it was a staircase at first. And also, Total Chaos is a game that rewards exploration. So obviously jumping down somewhere and then just being met by a death screen isn't really the best experience.
I'm currently eating. It's very yummy, No.
Anyway, once you get both of them and craft the key, which mysteriously, for its size, weighs 0 kg, the voice finally gets the power working.
The grid is back up and running. We can proceed.
Giving you a convenient shortcut back to the main area and driving the ceiling spiders away. Since this was more of a puzzle section, the next key balances it out by giving you just a combat challenge in the form of a long path you have to traverse, with enemies spawning behind every other corner. I'm not even joking, they do a bit of having a brute camping in a corner like 3 times in a row here.
He did the same joke about 3 times already. I don't think it's funny anymore.
Before you go up the elevator, there's a small secret area you can find if you go past it, with a tunnel that leads outside, looking out to the sunset.
It feels familiar, doesn't it? You loved this place once.
For how dark this game is, it's really refreshing. It's a beautiful view, even after the storm passed. There's another tape sitting on the chair next to you that you can listen to.
Hi, Leanne Mills here. Your most recent message, was, I'm worried about isolation with you. You're staying inside, not getting out of the house, and that can be worrisome. It gets to be kind of like its own addiction. If you can, and it doesn't need to take up all your day, just make a point to go outside and take a walk. I know that keeping to yourself in your house seems safe, but it ends up limiting your scope. You can just get too used to it. Just realize that outside the door, there are people who do care for you. I hope that you might call me for another session. I think it would be worth it. There's really only so much I can do from here, and we were really doing quite well. I know you have a lot on your mind. That's normal. Your thoughts don't define you. It would be great if we had time for a session. We had a process that seemed like a fine baseline for you, and that would be nice to kind of have as a goal. Remember, you're not trapped by your thoughts. You just have to let them pass. I hope you call me. Take care of yourself.
There's also a key that you can use to get to a stash next to the elevator with a shotgun if you missed it, as well as another CSTM pill and a bunch of ammo. The wheel key is just past the scaffolding, but there's one more interesting thing here. Another X-marked wall, but this one actually has a bit more to it. It has the standard bit of loot at first, but the rest of the room is locked behind a chain door. Again, if you kept a charge of the bolt cutters, you can use them here to get some more ammo as well as a knife spear, and to reach another locked door that you actually need a fuse to open. The same fuses from Chapter 3 that you probably didn't think to bring along, despite the voice on the radio hinting that you should.
You may want to take those fuses with you. Chances are we're gonna need them again.
If you did bring them with you, you'll be able to open the door and get another CSTM pill, as well as the literal best weapon in the game, the barbed rebar axe. This isn't even crackhead engineering. This is crippling fentanyl addictions levels of craftsmanship. Fuck. Fitting this much scrap metal onto just one axe handle is genuinely impressive. Functionally, it's just a regular weapon, but for the fact it has 70 different sharp ends results in it having the highest damage stat for any melee weapon in the game. Definitely worth the trouble of the bolt cutters and fuses. Just obviously make sure to tape it before you use it, since you're probably not going to find a schematic for it for a very long time. Now you have the 2 keys, you can finally enter the library.
Tread carefully, and hear the past doesn't just haunt you, it owns you. Before you proceed, you need to be sure. Sure of reaching the mines, no matter the cost. Once you cross that threshold, there is no turning back. Down here, he knows all. Even those pages you've tried to forget. He knows every story. He knows every mistake. All of it is in his hands.
As you go up the entrance, there's also another blueprint for a compound vial that heals you to full health. This is very convenient foreshadowing that you're probably going to need to use it very soon. Before you is a huge door, unlockable by inputting the right combination on the nameplates. There's also a note next to it, but it makes no sense.
I was reaching through the cold and unexpectedly found a distant embrace, but my world was fractured by the weight of broken things. I was banished, with nothing but silence between us, left to fester in a room without doors, all alone in a dying world.
Seemingly so important that it's also written in gold on the huge stone door behind it.
Behold! Next to each sentence, there's also a symbol. There's an easy connection to be made here. 6 sentences, 6 nameplates to turn. Under the note, there's also a book, Through the Cold by Sam Rowell. The title corresponds to the first sentence of the note, and Rowell is one of the names on the nameplates, which gives you the first solution. The other ones aren't as easy though, and one nameplate is even missing. To complete the puzzle, you'll need to go into the library.
Inside, it's completely dark. As you enter, you can hear laughter in the distance. But as you continue through, you find no one. Soon enough, you find a small reading cubby marked with a symbol above its doorway, with the book A Distant Embrace by Joanna Adel inside, giving you another solution. As you exit to find another one, instead of laughter, you hear monstrous gurgling as the reader finally appears before you and starts chasing you through the library. It's a huge hanging mass of flesh, too massive to sneak up on you. You can hear him even stomping or breaking bookshelves in the distance. If he does spot you, you'll be forced to run to one of the cubbies or the puzzle room, since he only accesses the areas with the tall bookshelves. The library area itself is huge, so you'll be stuck exploring it for a while. But at least there's shortcuts that you can open up as you progress, so you can make your way back to the main area. There's also some signs as well pointing to the symbols associated with the lines of the note, meaning you can target the ones you haven't found yet. Once you know the code, you can find the last missing nameplate and input the correct sequence. The door opens, and the reader makes one final stand to keep you from progressing. Fortunately, some random plywood fell, so despite being able to straight up break through walls, there's simply nothing he can do against a wooden pallet. Gordon Freeman would never. Now you can finally go to the next chapter, Regression.
It's done. Every score, every failure, every word that has been twisted is now yours to carry. Don't pretend it didn't leave its mark. The sooner we reach the mines, the sooner we can put a stop to this madness. Together. The pump station. It's not far from here.
This entire chapter is an expansion on the forest sequence in the original's Crossing chapter. Back then, it basically served just as a maze puzzle, since it was really hard to navigate because of the Silent Hill mist reducing your visibility to about 2 meters. Now the environment around you is much more visible, again showing off just how much the remake has improved the visuals. Your main goal here is still the same. You're still looking for the pump station, but now the forest is much more hostile. This huge tree monster doesn't like your presence in the forest. As you move around, you can sometimes hear it shifting as it stalks you. It's also, of course, completely immune to damage, so despite it being a tree, you can't just Molotov it and burn it to the ground. Eventually, you'll stumble onto this mini jump scare of a minor enemy. But now he has a shotgun which can wipe half your HP if you get hit. And no, you can't parry the bullets. Please don't try that. Now, he's not as much of an issue in a 1v1 since he gets stun locked by every firearm in the game, but he can be a real pain if you don't have any ammo left and catch a stray while winding up a heavy attack. Thankfully, you can loot their shotgun for ammo. Enjoy having 1 round. Maybe 2 if you're lucky. In the basement he spawned out of, there's some more supplies, including another chain-locked room with another fuse lever leading to another weight skeleton, alongside more ammo and, again, another CSTM pill. Next to the record player, there's also a note.
I was working as a coast guard. I received a distress call from a damaged offshore boat. After packing my belongings, I left to attempt a rescue. A great storm approached. My boat became damaged and stranded me at sea. I lay on the deck of my boat, waiting for rescue, but nobody came. Then, they came for me. A boat from a nearby mining colony saved me. They took me back to Fort Oasis. I stayed. I recovered, and each one of them welcomed me without hesitation. After helping me fix my boat, I was hesitant to leave. I have finally found a place I can call home, somewhere where I have found peace. I do not plan to return.
After this, you're introduced to a little gimmick mechanic for this chapter, harpoon reeling. By shooting a harpoon tied to a motor, you can straight up one-shot most wooden structures as you pull it out, while also never actually losing the harpoon itself. After you bring the bridge and the wooden barrier down, you make it to a larger graveyard area with a bunch of hidden loot on the graves, including another stamina pill. But more importantly, the voice on the radio begins probably his first documented crash out.
They were all looking down on me. Lita and Ryan. Those smug fucking faces. Watching me. Smirking at every step and every stumble. They'll see soon enough. They'll rot. They'll rot all the same. I think it's time I drag them down to my level. Down into the filth with me. Letting them choke on the suffering. Choke on the suffering they left me to drown in.
This is one of the first instances the voice on the radio is breaking character, not ordering you to follow his instructions in that deadpan voice, but instead opening up to the player in a fragile, deeply insecure way, starting off as someone that's broken, feels abandoned, to then slowly turning that into hatred and vengeance against the people who supposedly wronged him, and revealing much earlier on than the original who the voice is really representing.
From here, the way to the pump station is surprisingly quick. That enemy that looks like a Dead Space necromorph in the mod also comes back, now having the ability to raise its claws to block incoming damage. Basically the equivalent of the riot shield from Modern Warfare 2, but also a frenzy mode that you'll have to parry perfectly, or you could just break it by throwing a pet rock at him.
What about pet rock?
Once you get past him, the game again reminds you what a terrible place Fort Oasis has become with the power completely dry.
The power's out. We won't be able to operate the pumps without it. You need to get to the nearby generators to gain access to this station.
At least you get an actually pretty nice and readable map that you can use to get to the generators that you need. As you backtrack to the graveyard, the forest starts to twist more and more, with fleshy figures now grown into the trees, constantly wailing at you as you move past. There's also another harpoon puzzle, and there's one small thing I noticed here since I was using the harpoon gun. For some reason, it's the only ranged weapon in the game that glares can't stop. They'll catch your bullets midair, they'll catch your bottles, but a sharp rod of metal is apparently too advanced to be stopped. I mean, it's not overpowered, it still takes multiple hits to take a single one down. Also, I did lie when I said the harpoon is the only ranged weapon, because for some reason, they cannot do anything against the nailed rock or the scissors with a brick attached. As you move down the path, you can constantly hear stomping. The lurker, the huge tree, is now coming after you.
You feel it, don't you? This place isn't just around you anymore. It's becoming you. Taking hold. Soon, there won't be anything left of the person who first stepped ashore. And it's probably better this way. Embrace the madness. And the pain fades away.
Before you go down the hedge maze to get to the generators, there's also a side path leading to another chain door. There's been a bunch of these already. I know I keep going on about them. And if you opened each one, you probably don't have any more bolt cutter uses left. But that design is definitely intentional. It's about investing, saving those early uses for later chapters when the loot gets much better. Inside, you can find another one of these hidden alternate music records for the record player. But there's also a recipe to make a barbed rebar axe. That weapon I mentioned earlier, that's, you know, the strongest melee weapon in the entire game. You even get some of the materials needed to make it, though of course you don't get the rarest one, the axe handle. Seriously, you got no idea late game how many good recipes you are completely cucked by, because axe handles are probably the rarest single loot in the game. Now, going through the hedge maze, it's still easier to navigate than the Underhalls, though the corridors are so narrow that there's barely any room to dash sideways. Some brutes also do that Simpsons bit of coming out the hedges, which at this point, it doesn't really matter, because if you've got the rebar axe, you'll just be able to one-shot them anyway. As you explore, the voice also tells you about a plan to possibly get rid of that lurker.
That lurker. Nothing you carry will stop it. The water in the catacombs is foul and tainted, but if we can redirect it to the hydroponic systems, we might be able to spread the disease and choke this place. 4 conduits feed into the main line, and if we can adjust each valve, we can change the flow. 1 is nearby.
Though before you can find it, the ex-wife makes her appearance yet again.
This section, again, is really good at building tension. The hedge maze is still pretty narrow, even in the bigger rooms, so you'll often just barely be making it past them without exploding. Most of the time, you even have to bait them closer to clear the path to the next room.
Although it can be a bit brutal, simply because of this one lever, which to turn it, you have to leave the main corridor's line of sight for a good couple of seconds, during which the monsters, especially the second one that spawns in, will close almost all the distance. Even more punishing if, like me, you hoarded all the items in the game, you're now basically slowed to a crawl. But again, this still serves better connecting you with your character, as just like him, you're now genuinely panicking as you try to make it to the main corridor as fast as you can. That is, again, unless you crank your FOV all the way up. But, you know, you wouldn't cheat in a video game, would you? Nah, you wouldn't do that. When you clear the maze, you drop down into an underground facility of sorts where you find the first valve.
There. The first valve. Turn it.
With this, the lurker will hopefully stop being a problem soon. In the next room, there's also another note.
Life back on the mainland has not gone as smoothly as I would have hoped. Sure, the therapy was a success and I have a new chance at life, but I can't be happy. I miss being at sea, at Fort Oasis, Lita, and my friends. Could I go back? Nobody's there anymore. They're all gone. I sure as hell don't want to remain in this place. How does one make new friends when you're too scared to even look people in the eye? I need help.
Here, you can finally turn on the generators. Apparently, the entire reason for the pump station grid being offline is a single unturned lever. When you start making your way back, there's another blueprint for this unholy combination of a wrench and a butcher's knife. Which, to be fair, is actually really good because there's been loads of wrenches throughout the game, but you could never do a charged attack with them, so they felt pretty useless. If anything, I'd always keep one as a secondary just to be able to open up crates. So being able to actually have one that does more damage, yeah, I'll take that. There you go, wrench. Give you a little Reddit gold. But with that new schematic, and as you leave the building, this happens. The lurker is done just idly watching you in the distance. Feeling threatened by your progress and probably that valve you turned, it outright tries to kill you, even throwing whole tree trunks at you when it can't reach you. As you run, there's another valve to turn.
There. Another valve. Turn it. Chances are we won't be coming back here.
Hopefully you can kill the lurker before it finally catches up. There's another small harpoon puzzle in a room the lurker seemingly hasn't reached yet, only for him to burst out once you pick up the replacement lever. You have to bait him around the middle rock until he gives you just enough space to reel in the harpoon and run to the other side. And after that, you can make it into the tunnel entrance.
Get back to the pump station. We can get inside now. When you reach it, be prepared. They will put up a fight to stop you.
From here, you get a shortcut to right under the pump station, and despite the lurker trailing behind you, he can't make it inside. There's another valve to turn, and you can tell the voice on the radio is really reveling in killing everything in this area.
Another valve. Let them suffer. Let them all suffer.
There's also another tape next to the record player.
TJ, this is Mark. Thanks for reaching out to us. We're extremely relieved to hear that you're safe and the community of Fort Oasis was able to rescue you after your boat ran aground. We also received confirmation that the original call-out you were responding to has been resolved with no casualties. You can rest easy on that front. We'll give you as much time as you need to recover from the ordeal. And regarding your sudden resignation, we understand you wish to stay at Fort Oasis permanently. It's sad to see you go, but we want what's best for you. Please take care of yourself.
As you make your way through the station, the lurker tries to stop you. You can hear him raging outside as he throws trees through the windows to try and block your path, or hits the station building so hard that concrete blocks split off the ceiling. Ironically, one of these concrete blocks is what opens a path forward. Eventually, you reach the door to the pump room, locked behind a key, which, to get it, you're forced down into another dark room section. Of course, with the return of the ceiling spiders. Now, you're also stuck in waist-deep water and have to sometimes swim through sections of the canal. Fortunately, your lighter has no issues, despite being repeatedly waterlogged. At the end, you can find the key alongside the fourth final valve. But before it can work, you have to actually fix the pump system. Going into this puzzle, I was actually getting flashbacks to Infra, a game famous for two things: taking place in the most technologically advanced Finnish city, and how I'll never do a video on it, so stop asking. The puzzles in Infra would usually involve turning random pipe valves until a random smart tablet screen half a kilometer away finally turns green. Fortunately here, all you have to do is turn them on, fix a broken section of piping, turn off the leaky pipe, and wait for the exit to open as the voice congratulates you.
Good. The pumps are back up and running. The catacombs will be free for you to pass through. They go deep under the island and the sea. Once you go down there, I will no longer be able to contact you until you resurface.
As you walk through the flesh tunnel, the diseased water you're pumping in takes effect, and the voice again revels in the destruction.
Finally, it's done. They won't look down on us anymore. No more pity. Let them drown in the filth that they made.
As you walk out, you can see the forest. Grey, stagnant, dead. There's no enemies left. And on your way back, you find the lurker on its knees, its hands merged with the fleshy ground, gasping for breath. The light in its head is gone, and it's basically doomed to slowly die.
Despite this being your enemy, chasing you around the forest and actively trying to kill you, it's hard not to feel some compassion or even remorse. The voice, again, kept trying to incite you against it to cause it suffering, but did it even really deserve it? It only started to attack you once you started to destroy its habitat.
Catacombs are ahead. Remember, once you go down, I won't be able to contact you. I'll see you on the other side.
Despite you leaving the area through a door that used to lead back into the forest, now you're taken straight to the catacombs. Now that you've drained the water out, the way to the catacombs is open. And thankfully, the remake has cut down a lot of backtracking, because in the original, over half of Chapter 6 was just a 20-minute backtrack through the same exact path that you took to the pump station. I mean, I get it. That chapter was called Regression, so you're basically regressing by moving backwards. But that reference is not worth the torture of having to redo the same walk that you did minutes prior. Cry of Fear did this, by the way, making you backtrack all across Stockholm for fuses. Something I've referenced and complained about every single time backtracking comes up in a video. And now that the backtracking is gone, Regression is its own forest chapter. And you just get dropped off back here by the Flesh Tunnel public transport system. Trademarked. Copyright. At our seal of approval. The catacombs end up getting a full chapter all to themselves, which let the devs expand into it a lot. At the entrance, you can find a map of the catacombs. Same as the original, although the layout is completely different now. There's a lot of markings on it. Red X's designating something, maybe obstructions. A white circle on the top, potentially marking an exit. A mark labeled control, and one labeled enough, right next to where you started from. Alongside a message repeated multiple times. Don't shine light. As you enter, the voice has one final message for you.
Don't get lost down there.
Like I mentioned before, the voice has a lot more character in this game due to the very emotive voice acting. And in this message, it shines really well. In just a chapter earlier, he was manically screaming about killing the lurker, happy to finally bring it to its knees. But here, he's almost scared. He can't talk to you when you're in the catacombs, and he knows you'll be left all to yourself, or he can't guide you to his goal.
Moving through the catacombs, you can find the first map marking very soon. A graffiti reading, "I am enough." As you move room to room, the lighter goes out, leaving you desperately trying to spark it as the darkness engulfs you. And you can see familiar things as you walk past. Children's toys hanging on the pipes above you, books stacked the same way that they were in the library. As you move through one corridor, the screen goes white as something behind you, maybe in front of you, starts shrieking, and the prompt to blow out your lighter desperately flashes at you, eventually going out, even if you don't do it yourself. You can hear something running off as it goes out. This is the main enemy in this chapter. It'll get close to you and you have to turn the lighter off or suffer insane damage, usually an instant death. It's a huge improvement from the original because there, they would just put the invisible landmine exploding enemies everywhere. But this new enemy is much more situational. As much as the catacombs look like a maze, they're actually really small and you can easily navigate through the markings on your map. All you have to do really is avoid the X-marked obstructions, and soon enough you'll reach the end of the north section, where you get another map with, again, very vague markings. Though in one of the rooms you can make out a symbol representing a record player alongside another word, flares. Now, I know, okay, I did say that flares were removed earlier, but thankfully, here, they're only reduced to a situational item to progress, that you need to actually use them to go underwater. And even though the lighter is still my goat, it'll immediately be put to sleep once you enter the deep waters. Also, in general, I wouldn't really recommend cave diving. I mean, just look at the signs that they put as warnings for you to not do it.
Until a group of mosquitoes were alerted to his position.
No! This time, however, it's the only way to progress since the rest of the catacombs are collapsed. The reason why you need the flares is because when you go underwater, you're completely in the dark. Once you pop a flare, you'll start to see the Forgotten Ones again, crying on the sides as you swim past them. Later, even starting to intentionally block your path. And again, you're underwater, so you've got no way to attack them. When you make it to the marked exit, you walk out into what looks like an apartment corridor. Definitely not a sight you'd expect to be coming out of an underground tunnel. Your lighter goes out, and you realize you can't relight it as the flint is gone. But just as quickly as it broke, a lamp appears in front of you. You're not in the same corridor anymore. You're standing in a room, the Forgotten Ones surrounding you, looking at you, waiting for you to listen to the tape on the table.
I want you to think of a place. It can be real, it can be fictional, but it has to be a place that you would like to be at any given time. So that when you're feeling overwhelmed or you feel chaotic, you go to this place. Give it a name. Some people will call it their happy place. I'm sure you've heard that before. But give it your own name. This place in your mind is only for you. Invasive thoughts are not allowed. Nobody's other voice is allowed. You are allowed to say no to those things. It's safe, it's beautiful, it's quiet if you need it to be. That's what I'd like for you to practice this week. I know it might feel like we're not making much progress in our sessions, but I truly feel we're getting close.
The only way out starts taking you through a twisted version of the apartment building, with hallways turned upside down, walls replaced with the raging seawater, and you can hear another voice again. This one isn't Ryan.
Mayday! Mayday! This is CG Vessel 297. Cosine TJS. I'm taking on water. Repeat, I am taking on water off the coast of Fort Oasis. Approximately 15 nautical miles southeast of the island. Request immediate assistance. Please don't leave me.
It all feels like you're going mad again, but when you reach the door, nothing happens. You exit out into a beautiful view of a sunny skyline, a record player in the distance. As you follow the music, there's one more note on the ground. Tyler, came by earlier, you were out. Can you come see me at the Stillwater? Room 41. You can't save on the record player, but everything feels strangely peaceful, if a little bit off. Like this is the last place on Fort Oasis left untouched by whatever's created those monsters. When you make it outside, you can even hear what sounds like children playing in the distance. The architecture is still decayed, and something definitely feels off. But for at least a small moment, you do get some peace to explore without enemies. When you make it to the Stillwater Hotel, you might notice something odd though. The elevator with no buttons, taking you up as soon as you step inside. And when the doors open, you realize none of it was real. You're on a thin concrete walkway above the waves. Telephones hanging by the strings above you. The further you progress, the higher the telephones become before disappearing entirely. The paradise for the brief time you had it is gone. All you've done is go insane again.
Tyler? I was thinking maybe I could go back home for a while. Just to visit. See my family. Just get some space. It's not forever. I want to feel like myself again.
There's also meds before this locked gate that you have to take. It's volumin, a contrast material used for imaging. You have no choice but to take it. You walk until you reach another tunnel, this time a huge fleshy gap in the wall surrounded by a colored halo. You walk until you see graffiti on the wall. Every day is the same.
I guess this is home now. Just for a little while.
You're now in a rundown apartment. Your apartment.
They said it wouldn't change anything. And now it's too late! I don't need them. I don't need anyone.
Every time you circle the apartment, it changes, progressively getting worse each time. You can see yourself at the table, then in front of the wall.
Someone could still understand. But not them. Not family. Something else.
Eventually, a path opens up in place of the apartment.
Welcome home, Tyler. You made it. You're here. The exit is just up ahead. Take it. There's no use continuing down this path.
Having been through enough, you pull the switch and leave the catacombs. The mines await.
I'll be waiting for you, down in the mines.
In my swimsuit.
we'll confront the source of all this suffering. And maybe, buried beneath it all, lies an answer.
This chapter is exactly the same as the Chaos chapter from the original, though you might find it a little confusing since the chapter names have desynced. Madness now being the name for the Catacombs exclusive chapter, and the Madness chapter from the original straight up being gone. The naming convention definitely works since the Catacombs were purely psychological horror, making you feel like your character was progressively getting more and more insane with every step.
You're almost at your goal. Just this final push, and you'll finally meet the one speaking to you all this time, and maybe put a stop to all this corruption. But as always, there's another obstacle in your way.
Before the mines lies an open scar in the earth, known as the Gap. At its center, a spire is emitting radiation. Enough to kill you. There is no other way around. If you intend to pass, you'll need protection. A lead-plated suit. Heavy, cumbersome, but the only thing standing between you and the slow death. The warehouses nearby are filled with abandoned equipment. If you search carefully, you'll find what you need. The suit will weigh you down like a coffin. Carrying anything else will only drag you further into suffering. Whatever you've been hoarding up till now, whatever tools you've clung to, now is the time to use them.
The radiation stat, like I mentioned earlier, is totally gone from the remake. But that doesn't stop the Tower of Irradiated Cobalt from giving you 20 new different forms of cancer if you get too close without proper shielding. There's one more thing as well you can notice. Before searching for pieces of the radiation suit, when you save at the record player, the music is completely glitched, and you can't even really recognize it anymore. In fact, it's slowly been getting worse chapter by chapter, always lowering in pitch and becoming more corrupted. It's only noticeable now since it's completely illegible. This chapter again follows closely to the original, and as you progress to find the pieces for the suits, the Forgotten Ones block your way again.
They will try to stop you. If they get in your way, kill them.
And killing the first one, they begin to fight back. And in general, the level design for this chapter feels much more hostile. Half the time, you're basically just traversing tunnels of flesh. The flesh growths aren't just in Madness, they're spread everywhere now, even though you're grounded. Very fitting if you're nearing the source of the infection. But it doesn't explain the books from the library being stacked everywhere, or how the buildings you move around in look very similar to the apartment building from Storm. How you'd see different locations all converging in on each other. If anything, it reminds me of the Dreg Heap in Dark Souls 3.
Oh, fuck.
The world here doesn't make sense. Different locations, maybe even different time periods, all converging into each other. Like everything around you is sinking. Impossible ravines split entire cities. Dreg Heaps are slowly sinking into the abyss. There's also a couple of quirks in the level design where devs try to abuse your navigation skills to bait you into traps. Like this room with a door that you can open, a rarity considering like 90% of the doors in this game are locked by default. There's a little bit of loot inside and just another door like this one that you went through. So of course you try to open it and then you're hit with the jump scare again. One more thing to find here before you actually progress is another wind vein puzzle. Now this one is slightly different from the other ones, as you need to not only find and hit all of the wind veins, but you also have had to have saved all possible uses from the bolt cutter from the Storm chapter, as well as all 3 fuses from Forgotten. Now you might wonder, what's the amazing reward you get for never using the bolt cutters? You get this.
There's no achievement for it, nothing to actually commemorate you doing this. You've been depriving yourself of using the bolt cutters on something actually helpful just for this unforgettable experience. But it is a reference to the original mod, so I guess I'll let that slide.
There's a couple more tapes to find scattered around as well, both repeated from notes in the original.
Mr. Scott, this is John Thomas calling again from CW Medical. I'm pleased to let you know that the therapy was a success. You're officially in remission. We'd like to schedule a follow-up test in a few months, just to keep an eye on things. Please give me a call back when you can, and we'll find a time that works for you. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. But for now, I think it's safe to say celebrations are in order.
The cheery tone of the message of what's supposed to be good news almost feels jarring to hear with where you are now and what you're going through. Soon enough, though, the voice on the radio brings you back down to reality.
You never came here to save anyone. You came to bury yourself where no one could see.
The biggest change in this chapter, in my eyes, is how vocal the voice gets here. In the original, he just ordered you around, had a monotone voice, told you what to do, and even dropping this one-liner that does go pretty hard.
A disease has taken over this place.
Here, he never leaves your side, constantly dragging you deeper and deeper, closer to him and your goal.
A disease. It has taken over this place. Leave the past behind. Forget the people who left you. Forget the life that betrayed you. Here, there's no more pain. Only silence.
When you have all the pieces of the suit, the game doesn't even let you put it on outright, instead forcing you up to this gate and to initiate a cutscene that immediately wipes your entire inventory. The voice technically warns you about it beforehand, saying how the suit is too heavy and you won't be able to carry anything with you.
You have everything you need for this suit. Once you put it on, the weight will be too much to bear. You will need to leave your equipment behind.
But the entire suit only weighs around 20 kilograms. And hopefully, with how many CSTM pills you've been spamming the entire game, you're probably still pretty light. It's similar to how in Cry of Fear, the final act forced Simon to lose his bag and halving his inventory capacity. But here, you're left with nothing.
Nothing at all!
Fortunately, there is a way around it. Dump your entire inventory on the ground, put the suit back on, and then pick everything up.
Wait a minute. He said I'm gonna lose everything, right? I got a plan. And then I'll put the suit on. Oh! Oh! I'm a genius! Smartest player alive. I didn't drop the... I got no ammo.
The suit itself is also in an even worse condition than the original. On top of the cracks on the visor, you get a huge patch of tape blocking your left peripheral. But also, like in the original, the suit doesn't go over your hands. So, yeah, I guess say goodbye to your fingers with all that radiation.
Yeah.
When you finally get a move on, you can progressively hear your Geiger counter get louder. And the voice comes back again. I can't even call him the voice on the radio anymore, since now you can hear him clearly like he's standing next to you.
Every step you took, every fight, every desperate breath, it was all part of the same march towards the inevitable. Let it go. There's nothing left to fight for.
You finally reached the mines. They seem much more peaceful at first, if not peaceful, then at least quiet, repeating the trope of never seeing an enemy while you don't have a weapon to defend yourself. But soon enough, you reach an armory with a revolver, a lot of ammo, and the returning goat, the double-barrel shotgun. You might ask, what's the point of deleting your entire inventory if the game is about to give you a stash anyway? But this serves to manage the difficulty and also set everyone at the same level, you and the enemies. If you've been hoarding items the entire game, which you probably have been, this final chapter would be too easy, and the devs would have to try and design around it to make it more challenging, while still providing an experience for the average Polygon reviewer who's barely scraping by.
It's also kind of a turning point in the game. Up until now, firearms were basically secondary. Maybe you used them more if you looted a lot of ammo, but you couldn't really rely on them 100% of the time. That was still the job of your melee weapon. Now that shifts as you're stuck with just guns. No safety lead pipe to fall back on if you run out of ammo, making each bullet count that much more.
Except there's no enemies anywhere to even use them on. The tunnels are empty, devoid of anything. You can find a record player completely broken, jumping all around the track, until you get to a huge hall with a figure in the middle, just standing there, its head spinning around. Suddenly, the lights go out. The emergency lighting comes on alongside alarms, and you're finally ambushed by all the monsters that have been waiting for you down here. Because of the lead suit slowing you down, it's pretty hard to not tank damage here. But thankfully, the double barrel completely carries all through this section, letting you collap multiple enemies at once and taking out all but the heaviest armored enemies in one clean shot. If you do run out of ammo, miners thankfully do drop their weapons.
Like I mentioned before, their durability is terrible, only being able to land a few blows before breaking, but they can double up as projectiles that you could finish off an enemy instead of whacking them 200 times with the butt of your shotgun.
Eventually, you end up in a huge cavern with a cube in the middle, marked with the same symbols you've been encountering throughout the game. Omega, a dagger, and a ship's wheel. To open it, you have to pull the switches in the right order, given to you on a scrap of paper, except the person drawing you the instructions was apparently a complete brokey, not even being able to afford a new marker after having drawn all the maps and notes you found earlier, making these instructions almost completely invisible, forcing you to guess the symbols from the vaguest of possible markings. But if you stare at the paper long enough for the faded patterns to etch themselves into your brain, you'll notice the unique markings of each symbol. First, this little broken line belonging to one of the spokes on the ship's wheel. Secondly, you can see the symbols outlined just barely contrasting against the paper. Third, you get nothing. Literally nothing, apart from a small smudge. But because the last symbol is very clearly the rounded top of Omega, the third symbol has to be the blade. Because it's only 4 symbols, you might think that you could just use trial and error. Although make sure to save first, because pulling the wrong lever immediately collapses the ceiling and drowns you and everything inside the cavern. Although the enemies don't really seem to be too bothered. Once you finally input the right combination, a switch activates, letting you open the huge cube in the middle.
Please, take a seat. Now, I'm afraid the results came back exactly as we feared. Further tests confirm it. Stage 3B, lung cancer. Fort Oasis doesn't have the kind of equipment you'd need for treatment. There's simply nothing here that can help you at this stage. You'll need to return to Clearwater as soon as possible for chemotherapy, possibly surgery. I'm sorry, Tyler.
You wake up without your suit, without anything. You're left defenseless again, standing in the pieces of what's left of your Fort Oasis. Infected flesh growing everywhere like tumors. You have to navigate this maze of dead ends as new monsters you've never seen before manifest themselves. It's the same reveal as the original that you, Tyler, had lung cancer. But instead of reading a pop-up PNG of a letter, Tyler doesn't even read it because we've seen it happen before. Eventually, you can find a shotgun, at least something to defend yourself with. You have barely enough ammo to dispatch the enemies. You keep fighting, keep struggling, until...
Enough! You let this all fall apart! You left us to rot!
You face your final challenge. The faceless man responsible for bringing you here. The one who just earlier knocked you out with the pickaxe. The one now screaming at you for ruining his life. The only way out now is through him.
This fight feels so very personal. You're not just fighting arbitrary monsters anymore. Now it's a rendition of a human being. I mean, he doesn't have a face, being replaced with this like fleshy void, but he's still dressed as a human and screams like one when you throw bottles at him. So caving his skull in with a pickaxe still feels a bit different than the rest of the enemies in this game.
He fights the same way you do, not mimicking like in other games where enemies will copy your movements one to one and the entire challenge is a puzzle to outsmart them, but he'll charge up heavy attacks, dodge out of the way, even parrying, and also throwables if you move too far away. And more importantly, he completely hates you. You could never reason with the monsters earlier since, you know, they were monsters, just animated flesh puppets. But this feels much more personal. He hates you so much, he would never let you leave. He's got you exactly where he wanted, in a fight to the death. As you fight him, you can hear him screaming at you or mumbling, so distraught with rage that he can't even form coherent sentences anymore. When you do enough damage, he collapses, but it's far from over. You walk through the same hallway you did in the original, the forgotten ones on the sides stabbing themselves as you make it to the door at the end. A revolver, your revolver, on the ground underneath. You're back in the forest again, and soon enough, you see him. But when you knock him down, he doesn't disappear. Instead, huge glowing tendrils drop from the sky, attaching to him and then attacking you. You have to shoot them with your revolver to release him and then let you fight him again. Now he's throwing everything he has at you, even bringing in forgotten ones to attack. The same ones he earlier told you to kill. He despises you, blaming you for everything, even though all you did was follow his instructions. But with so much you've already been through, you eventually persevere. You land the fatal blow. He disappears, the tendrils supporting him falling out of the sky.
Tyler, there was no other way. Even when we beat the disease, it was still a distance. She left us. Everyone left us. The isolation. The loneliness. We don't. I don't have to take it anymore.
You're back in the same room. Noose, chair, and again, there's no other way out. As you proceed, you see a figure standing in the doorway that's now opened up behind you. Lit by the sun over the oceans from a better time, but there's no point now.
There's not much room for interpretation here. Tyler kills himself. The conclusion is the same spirit as the original Mud. The main story of the entire game takes place wholly within his mind, spiraling lower and lower as the dark parts of his psyche push him further into eventual suicide. That's all still there, but but the framing around it is a lot more complex.
For one, there's a lot more symbolism, which you can see all the way in the first chapter of the game.
Symbolism.
Remember that dial puzzle that was new to the remake and how the symbols kept reappearing before eventually showing up as the final puzzle for the game? I talked a bit about what they could mean earlier, but once you get them ordered to open the box, they come together to represent Tyler's life. From the ship's wheel, standing in for the shipwreck that brought him to Fort Oasis. The Hindi symbol here symbolizing the peace he finally achieved having moved there. The dagger being the stab in the back from Leader leaving.
Does it hurt when I do that?
But also everything else that followed. The cancer diagnosis, the death of Fort Oasis, and finally, Omega, the end. Speaking of the end, there's also an alternative ending, just like the mod, where you stop yourself from completely cutting yourself off from the world. These also follow the same theme of defying the voice on the radio. Like in Chapter 2, you have to again find Leader's note under the graveyard, the same graveyard that the voice tells you is pointless exploring.
Why are you going down there? The storage room is your way out. There's nothing in the graveyard worth finding. Only things best left undisturbed.
You do the exact same thing as in the mod, breaking pallets to drop down, but instead of a blood-soaked area, it's more subtle. The area just seems forgotten, like Tyler was hiding it from himself. There's no loot apart from a single tape recorder, which ironically is placed near some metal bars, making you feel like you're in a prison.
Tyler, please pick up. I just wanted you to understand. I've made up my mind. I feel isolated here. Trapped. I know you always dreamed of living by the sea, but this isn't a life for me. My family misses me. And I miss them. I'll never forget the time we shared. You are a good person, Tyler. And I will always love you. I couldn't say this to your face. I didn't want our last words to be another fight. I've tried over and over to reach you, but you won't listen. Please, take care of yourself. I love you. I always will.
This note is very painful for Tyler, so much that he repressed it and hid it in his subconscious. But it's something he needs to hear to remember again that Leader never stopped loving him. This is a huge turning point for Tyler and the first instance of him breaking out of his own fantasy. But unfortunately, all sincerity at the time was lost because I was doing a clip farm.
You're a good person, Tyler.
Shut up, woman. I need to think. Although Chapter 3 is a sort of exception to the not listening to the voice theme, you're supposed to avoid killing the final boss, just like in the mod, but strangely, the voice on the radio actually seems to guide you towards your goal here.
Like, he initially tries pointing you to a way where you could avoid even fighting her in the first place. Then, as you enter the boss room, he even asks you to make it quick. The pain of completely wiping out the connection you had with Leader is too much even for him. He also hints at the way you're actually supposed to get out of her boss fight, which, by the way, is ridiculously convoluted, despite me glazing this game constantly.
After he sends you to the police station and you get the Sten, he tells you to keep the fuses around in case they're useful later. Which, okay, if there was just an open slot in the boss room, this would be pretty obvious. But instead, the remake also took the concept of a breakable wall from the original, so you have to go back for the fuses. Then, in the fight, bait the boss into using one specific attack that she won't use unless you damage her enough. This is also on a completely random wall that doesn't stand out as falling apart. The only sign that might be special being the graffiti saying, "They're gone."
All my apes gone.
So I don't really feel like anyone would be able to discover this unless it was completely on accident. And when you do it and escape the boss, leaving Leader alive, you can hear her screaming at you. It doesn't feel like you've made a good choice here.
Don't Please, not again. Don't leave us.
But with that being said, at least it's not a permanent solution. Chapter 4 is easy enough if you pick up the fact that madness isn't actually a bad thing in this game, since it's your state after taking the pills. The name's scrawled out, but you can pretty easily read that it's fluoxetine, a commonly prescribed antidepressant. They're supposed to be beneficial for Tyler's sanity, numbing out all of his delusions, but from your perspective, they corrupt and mutate the game environment. That's because it's all a delusion that he's built for himself. The meds are helping break that down. That and the fleshifying of the island, as well as flashes of figures and the frequent blinking, could also be a manifestation of brain shivers, which are actually mentioned in the item description and are a side effect Tyler complains about in one of his notes. That's why I think madness is such a smart addition. It looks hostile, like you need to escape from it, but it's the closest thing throughout the game that Tyler gets to breaking down his own fantasy. But the subconscious part of his brain is rejecting it. That's why everything looks so horrific. If you don't ground yourself after the final madness section, where you come out right in front of the store, you find a tunnel leading directly to the exit elevator, completely bypassing the wall of flesh. This one's at least very obvious about what you have to do, with the note saying that burning the flesh means severing the connections. And when you throw the Molotov, you even see an effigy of Ryan, the guy who just earlier trusted you with the key. The game here is sounding a siren that you're not making the right choice here.
At this point, the voice does actually pick up that you're not listening to him with the choices you've made previously, even getting really angry at you for it.
You came here seeking meaning, seeking truth. But when you stood at the threshold, you faltered. You couldn't go through with it. They won't save you. They'll strip you apart, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. If you won't let me open your eyes, then why are you even here?
But who cares? Taking the secret path gave me the weight skeleton an entire chapter early. Crossroads is where the good ending stops being just knowing things or following a guide. Here, you get a small pointer as what you're supposed to do after the madness section, that being where you get the revolver, with Ryan's voice breaking through to you just before you're about to ground yourself.
Oh, that record player. I know grounding yourself right now is what you're aching to do, but we may have to dig deeper if we're going to make it through this. I know it hurts, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It may be faint, but it's there. You're stronger than you think. You just have to keep moving toward it.
In your medicated state, you stay connected to reality, to other people, where Ryan can actually reach through calling you. All those phones you pick up normally with static, those were his attempts to reach you that simply couldn't break through the barrier that you put around yourself.
Lore-wise, this is amazing storytelling, really, but gameplay-wise, this means you have to complete the entire chapter in madness, meaning you can't ground yourself, meaning you can't save. You have to go through it completely deathless, which is easily the hardest challenge the game throws at you. Ryan even warns you how hard it is, which is the point. To make progress, the hardest part always comes first to reap the rewards later.
Now, Crossroads isn't an insanely difficult chapter by itself, but there's so many ways that you can fall off the map and lose a full hour of progress, especially in the dark room. It's extremely stressful and definitely the hardest part of getting the good ending. There's no auto-saving here either. While in Madness, those enemies from the revolver section also keep spawning pretty much everywhere you go, constantly keeping you guessing if they're going to break free from the tendril and start chasing you, or stand there and have your full attention while another enemy sneaks up on you. But all the way through it, you have Ryan staying in touch and trying to keep you stable enough to be able to keep pushing through.
Record player. I know grounding yourself right now is what you're aching to do, but we may have to dig deeper if we're going to make it through this. I know it hurts, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It may be faint, but it's there, and you're stronger than you think. You just have to keep moving toward it. I haven't kept in touch with Lita. She's not easy to find these days. I'm sorry about that. Hearing you got a little girl, that's incredible. I'm sorry you haven't been able to see her. I can't imagine how much that weighs on you. You need to focus on yourself first. Get your footing, get your mind in a place where you can stand again. You've been to hell and back, and I know it's left scars, but it's good. No, it's reassuring to hear you're starting to mend. I'm glad you reached out again and kept this connection alive. That means a lot. Fort Oasis, it was beautiful. So many good memories. Moments I thought would last forever. It's hard to accept it's all gone now. Hey, listen. We're still here. We might be scattered, living different lives and walking different paths, but we haven't disappeared. You just have to find us again. And you can. Tyler. I know you can.
He's genuinely trying to help you, unlike the voice on the radio who just wants to use you to get what he thinks is best for himself. Ryan is there to help Tyler get better, something the voice tried desperately to convince Tyler wasn't true. What separates Ryan and the voice on the radio is that Ryan admits to you how things are going to get worse before they get any better. He's being honest with you, instead of coldly instructing you where to go, like the voice on the radio, acting like everything is an inevitability. If you ground yourself at any point in this level, which the game might trick you into doing by spreading numerous record players around, the monster count drops, the chapter becomes easier to navigate, but Ryan is gone and the phones are again replaced with static. Apart from moral support, the game itself also rewards you for doing it, as more fleshy tunnels open up around the map every time you blink, giving you access to more rare loot like CSTM pills or hunger busters. And more importantly, at the end, when you enter the library, the labyrinth of shelves is gone, and so is the boss for this area. The medication you took suppresses the thought patterns that created him. You're not getting lost within your memories, no more rumination, and he's no longer there to twist them against you. Instead, you actually get a nice ordered set of rooms. And instead of the voice on the radio explaining what the librarian boss was, this keeper and rumination of all your negative thoughts, that voice line is entirely replaced by the radio ringing one more time.
I know there are things you keep turning over in your head. Dark truths, regrets, letting them twist and drag out. It's not what you need right now. What you need is to heal, to get better. The past, it won't give you anything but more suffering. Don't let yourself drown in it. I know you, Tyler. You're stronger than you think. I've seen it. You've been through more than anyone should ever have to face. But you've always found a way to come through. You always survive.
Like Ryan said, you can't let yourself drown in the past. The medication finally letting you pass through it like nothing happened. The librarian boss was Tyler personally keeping all of his mistakes and bad memories stored in his head, ruminating on them so they became this catalog that he could easily access to punish himself and keep himself in a loop. That's why the building is so large, because it occupied such a large part of his head. But with Ryan giving him support, he was able to reduce it and pass through it without confrontation.
After this, the rest of the chapters are much easier. Regression isn't exactly clear on what you're supposed to do from the get-go, but you might notice just how much the voice on the radio fucking hates the lurker.
The lurker represents the people around Tyler who he viewed as always watching him, looking down on him. These could have been friends, family, or just people he passed by that didn't know about his problems. Imagine the amount of people you pass or talk to every day that are having their own problems and issues. These can spiral to the point that you villainize everyone around you, that they don't get you or they think that they're better than you. This is another amalgamation of the connections that the voice on the radio wanted you to burn in the Storm chapter. The voice wants you to kill it and have Tyler get revenge by, again, cutting himself off from everyone he views as an antagonist. But this actually has the easiest solution. Even though seeming inevitable, you can literally just walk past the pipe and not do it. The gate to the next area isn't even locked. You just have to interact with it. Again, in a meta sense, it's playing on that rule of doing an objective to unlock the next area, but you can completely defy that. He'll initially be confused about how you missed the valve, but after the chase sequence, he'll be enraged by you not following through with it. Yeah, I swear that voice line just lives rent-free in my head. It's so good.
What do you think it is you'll achieve by letting that thing roam this place? You're making a mistake. It won't solve anything.
Again, the new voice acting really sells the rage at you defying him. He's genuinely convinced that his way is the only way and all of the progress you make is pointless. If you don't turn any of the valves except the final one for the level, the lurker will be intact and all the connections in the form of trees will still be alive, wailing and screaming. Again, it doesn't feel like you did the right thing because you're still stuck in the fantasy. And he contacts you again to let you know you're not doing what he wants.
You let it live. This won't solve anything.
He starts to sound genuinely defeated now, slowly coming to terms with your actions.
The catacombs have the exact same gimmick they did in the original, where right at the end of the chapter, you would see a way out, with the radio telling you there's no point exploring anymore. But you can choose to go down a longer path instead of just leaving immediately and find a tape from Tyler's therapist.
Hi, this is Leanne Mills here. Tyler, I just want to tell you I'm glad that you stayed with therapy as long as you have. Even when you felt like it wasn't working. Over the past few weeks, I've noticed a real shift in your attitude. It seems like you're starting to accept your darker thoughts, instead of trying to bury them. That's important. If you keep working at it, I believe you can make real, lasting changes, even if you choose to continue this path without my help. And honestly, I don't think you'll need it. So keep going. You're stronger than you realize. And take care of yourself.
But rather than the tape, just the action of delving deeper here matters. The catacombs represent the therapy that Tyler went through, with the voice not being able to reach him here. He even tells Tyler to not get lost down there to prevent him from dwelling too much on his therapy and straying from the path that he set out for him. The graffiti on the walls being affirmations from his therapist, crossed out now that the fantasy is in full effect. To go down and get the tape, you put in the work to revisit and remember your therapy, instead of pushing through, focusing only on your end goal and throwing all that effort away. This tape, talking about making progress, is purposely stored in an area that's incredibly hard to reach. Earlier in the chapter, you had to turn your lighter off to avoid an unseen enemy, but now it's the complete opposite. If you run out of flares because your light is dead, it'll hunt you down, instantly killing you. You have to retrace the entire map backwards, finding flares to keep the light going until you find the recording. And then in chaos, one final step. Yep, it's exactly like the mod, and there's only this one group of forgotten ones in total, blocking your way to a shortcut and loot that at this point is pretty much useless anyway, so it's not really a big sacrifice. It's funny how one of the last requests is the most easy to overcome, almost as if the fantasy is running out of juice. Finally, once you make it all the way to the mines, face the voice and beat him again, instead of approaching him as he kneels depressed at the edge of a pit, you see a literal light at the end of the tunnel.
Tyler, I was wrong. I was wrong.
10 out of 10. Bravo, Wadaholic. Keeping yourself grounded to reality stops Tyler from spiraling out. He doesn't feed the delusion in his mind, instead staying connected to the real world and finally managed to work through his thought patterns.
One tidbit here I really like as well is how when the voice starts talking again and says he was wrong, he melds into your own voice, finally becoming one with Tyler again as he learns to live life despite the darker part of his mind. And the sound design for the two endings is also completely stellar. In the normal ending, you get a tragic, depressing rendition of the game's main theme, hammering down Tyler's hopelessness. Meanwhile, here, you get a peaceful, promising track, reminiscent of the music you heard back in the past for Oasis section of the Madness chapter, somehow recapturing the best moments of your life through finally dealing with your psyche.
Even though it looks like your reward for going through all these steps is just a field of grain you can walk through for a little bit, that change of going from a depressing and predictable ending to one that's genuinely hopeful, with Tyler finally having a possible future, does make it worth it. I do like this ending. It shows that all of Tyler's problems aren't immediately fixed. He still has no way to contact Leader, a lot of his friends are still gone, but at least he has another day to at least try something new. Although, that being said, I did have an idea in my head how the ending would go as a final confrontation.
You think this solves anything? Go on. Get your happy ending. You'll be back here soon enough. You still don't have anyone who would want you. You couldn't even go through with it. Coward! It took all of that just to make it to the next day. Why even fight it? Lita left you. Ryan reached out only because he knew how pathetic you were and didn't want your guilt imprinted onto him. But they'll all forget about you eventually. Too busy with their own lives. And you're just a burden to everyone around you. Because you're so fucked up.
You're not killing us over this. I still have a chance. I can leave. What do you have? Misery, wallowing in self-pity. You're the one who's pathetic.
What can I say? I learned from the best.
It's done. You're done. I don't know what I'll do next, but it's at least something. Thanks for making me realize that.
No. No, you don't get to thank me! Who do you think put us here? Who do you think fucked everything up? You did, Tyler. Stop trying, you know I'm right! Maybe a week, maybe a month, but you'll end up back here. And then what? Straight back to square one. You fuck up everything around you. All you have is me.
You might have noticed I didn't really do much analysis of the notes of this game, and I did that for a couple of reasons. First, the remake is a very open story, being much less subtle than the original, not leaving nearly as much room for interpretation or bringing in new theories or ideas, since there's a very clear structure of what happened, and most importantly, it shows a lot of it actually happening on screen, or lets you listen to it via the tapes.
And second, the lore is literally the same as the mod. Tyler's story has almost no changes in it, and I've already explained and analyzed it fully in my original video. The remake doesn't make any changes to it because it doesn't really need to. The big changes it introduces are the ways the story is actually told and how much it really fleshes out about him and the events that made him end up here.
Leader and Cora especially get a lot more attention in the remake, as probably the people with the most impact on Tyler. It's nice to see them get more story to themselves, with Leader now being much more present, appearing as a disembodied voice so many times. Not to mention as well the numerous tapes of her speaking. The references to Cora being everywhere in Forgotten to a point it's completely unmissable, and even adding more character to Tyler, with the note of him trying to access Cora's records, attempting to find out more about her, but not reaching out outright, likely afraid of having to speak to Leader again and risk reopening that wound. There's also Ryan. He gets the special honor of appearing in the game himself rather than a grotesque manifestation of how Tyler would see him, probably because he's still trying to make the effort to reach Tyler when the game takes place. Despite his quote-unquote confession in Chapter 4, he's the one person actively trying to help him, and only through taking his advice can Tyler actually make it out and start to get better. He only becomes corrupted if you go through with what Tyler wants.
You should kill yourself now!
There's also much smaller characters like the landlord, Mr. Wayne, whose inclusion seems to be more to pad out the timeline a bit, having him give Tyler the apartment, but also showing another example of a friendly face in Tyler's life, who again made an offer to reach out, and this didn't really fit the voice's view of his life, where everyone was apparently looking down on him. You never meet this character, only notes and recordings, but it's obviously meant something to Tyler to keep it repressed in his memories. I've talked about a lot of the main ones, but there's a lot of genuinely smaller and subtler references alongside the more heavy-handed ones you only get by replaying the game. For every pack of cigarettes called Illness, with a tagline that literally says, "Smoke these if you want to die," or an apparition of your ex-wife, you also get passages that look like MRI machines, referencing Tyler's lung cancer treatment, or that entire First Madness section in Crossroads representing the hospital he went to, complete with that syringe that tries to drown you.
So that's
Jeez, is that true?
That's delightful.
You know, is that actually happened?
Or even tumors appearing next to where you find the pieces of the radiation suit, shrinking as you pick them up, referencing his chemotherapy. These appear especially in the Madness chapter, because this chapter represents his therapy. This is also probably why you get the biggest revelations here. The flashbacks to being stranded on the island in the first place. The entire sequence with Fort Oasis in the past. Seeing how beautiful that time of his life was for Tyler. Only for him to revisit Leader leaving him again. Something that was probably brought up a lot in therapy, seeing as this seemed to be around the time things started to go wrong for him. As you walk along the path, you can even see the telephones hanging above your head, getting further and further away, showing Tyler losing contact with the people around him, then taking Volumen, a contrast material used for medical scans, walking into a literal MRI machine and ending up in the apartment. Back on the mainland, after he'd already lost everything, you see Tyler trapped in his apartment. You're walking around in a spiral as you watch him descend into insanity, and just at that very moment, you see him creating what would later become the voice on the radio. Family, friends, no one around him could understand him, so he created something that could. Something that would push him to do what he's wanted for so long. That sequence is actually what's happening moments before the game starts with the opening text. This is the room where Tyler created his fantasy to escape from everything.
There's so many points the game utilizes, some summary retelling of Tyler's story. I mentioned the 4 symbols earlier, but there's also the puzzle poem from the library, again referencing his shipwreck, finding Fort Oasis, everything eventually falling apart, his isolation, and now being stuck in this creation of a mind desperately trying to end itself. The names of the authors you need to put on the nameplates are also just anagrams of the names of important characters from Tyler's life.
Or the game outright asking you if you want to end the suffering whenever you try to quit out, since that also stops Tyler's self-destructive spiral. Similar to how in the original there was graffiti telling you to stop playing the game. Although personally I see this option as escapism compared to an actual good ending. If you quit and then hide from your darker thoughts instead of working through them, they'll always resurface and bring you right back to where you left off. It has similar themes to Lost in Vivo, a game that I covered years ago, where you can leave early, but you get a non-conclusive ending where you survive, but the world around you becomes smaller because you didn't confront your problems head on. Also, subtle nod to Spec Ops The Line.
None of this would have happened if you just...
An amazing game that makes you do terrible things with no other option and then bizarrely blames you for doing it in the first place.
The video games are best video games.
Yes, I'll cover that game eventually. Maybe when I'm like 40, so give me like a month. It's a similar case with dying in the game. Usually enemies are set up to represent connections in Tyler's life, things that still keep him grounded to reality. The voice wants you to fight through them since they're the ones actively holding you back, trying to stop Tyler until he himself chooses to cut them off by killing them to progress towards his goal. If you die to one of them, that just means the connection is still strong enough to keep Tyler sane and break his spiral. You'll even notice that you often get even more enemies while in a madness state, the pills actively fighting against Tyler's self-destructiveness and making it harder for him to not break the delusion. But if you continue pushing on, the voice on the radio starts to sound clearer and clearer, its influence becoming stronger as Tyler keeps spiraling, closer to the mines and closer to going through with it. As you progress through the game, everything becomes more distorted, especially when close to the mines. There are impossible ravines, concrete, wood, graphite raising into the atmosphere. It reminds me of the Dreg Heap in Dark Souls 3. Yes, this is a Dark Souls comparison. Cry about it. The Dreg Heap was the end of an age. Everything slowly and inevitably sinking into the center. Something long past its expiration date. But like how Tyler's fantasy is nearing its conclusion, it struggles to maintain itself, showing how fragile it was all along.
One more reoccurring theme as well is drowning. When you think about it, water is basically everywhere in this game, from just the ocean surrounding Fort Oasis to that water then being used to kill the lurker in Regression and several underwater sections that you have to go through. One thing with the swimming mechanic in the game, you're never actually allowed to swim upwards whenever you're underwater. You immediately sink to the bottom and just walk.
Though you'd assume Tyler should be able to swim since he did work as a coast guard. The shipwreck that washed him on the island in the first place must have been very traumatic for him. Even in the Chapter 7 Madness section, you have to walk through a tight corridor surrounded by raging water. As he's brought back to the event, clearly something he still remembers and can't let it go. With the storm chapter showing how fresh it is in his memory, the storm that stranded him on the ocean still is. And there's also that part in Crossroads where this fear is combined with a reminder of his cancer treatment, a needle flooding him with blood, almost drowning him. And even very early on in the game, one of the earlier transmissions has a double meaning.
I've been alone in this place. Isolated and rotting away. It has been suffocating.
It's obviously talking about the suffocation from being isolated, but it can literally also mean suffocating, something which nearly happened to Tyler. Alcohol could have also been something Tyler was struggling with to help him cope through the isolation. That's why so many throwables in the game are alcohol bottles. There's no reason why there's so many in the game unless it was a problem that Tyler had. It's a very easy fix to numb everything and to forget for a few hours. Tyler actually mentions in one note that he can't even look people in the eye. But alcohol makes you so stupid that you get out of your head, you stop overthinking, only for it to act like a credit card to take the same away from you plus interest. The shame, regret, or guilt only comes back stronger, cascading from something that used to help you, now in complete control of your life. Substance abuse is never really the problem. It's the symptom of something much larger. And Tyler was obviously using it to get out of his own head for a few moments, without dealing with the issues that were causing it in the first place. I think a lot of people treat substance abuse as something easy to overcome, or it shows weak character that someone could be so addicted to something. It's always interesting how addiction seems to spiral or relapse from rumination. It's never when you're out doing something, It's usually always when you're alone with your own thoughts. And one of the hardest things to overcome is dealing with those thoughts and being happy with your own existence. Total Chaos wasn't trying to make that argument. I just found it interesting how there were so many bottles that were completely full scattered across the chapters. Talking more about Tyler's projections in this fantasy, you can even take them places where the devs didn't even think about it. Like the radiation spire from Chaos, another possible reference to either radiotherapy for his cancer or the cancer itself, with the gap where the spire is then maybe symbolizing the parts of his life at the time of Fort Oasis he lost because of it. Or the graffiti in Crossroads, which I initially thought was relating to only having to complete 6 out of 7 of the steps for the good ending. But this initial theory I had isn't the case. You still have to do Crossroads completely saveless. And instead, this is referencing that the revolver behind the wall has 6 bullets in the cylinder, giving Tyler 6 chances to shoot himself. Or, you know about the 4 symbols. Well, they do represent his life story. Tyler was actually an electrician.
Dispenser going up.
Interesting coincidence to be using the Omega, also known as when you use it as the SI unit, maybe giving the symbol a double meaning depending on which ending you get. The Omega when Tyler ends it all, and the when Tyler literally resists. You might say this is insane, because it is, but remember that Hindi symbol that I said earlier meant peace? It's literally vocalized as the exact same as All of that aside, there's a couple smaller things still left to talk about in the remake. Mostly quality of life changes, like a literal tourist mode if you find the game too hard, where you can disable its survival elements like hunger and weapon durability.
And then there's also the opposite of quality of life, survivalist mode. This is the hard mode of the game, and holy shit, it sucks.
There's significantly less loot, meaning you'll very likely get trapped in a resource drain cycle. From having to break more crates for items you need to survive, which of course damages your weapons and increases your hunger, making you break more crates, and so on and so on. But what's even worse is you're not even allowed to save normally. The record players are still there, but they don't have a record playing, forcing you to diligently loot every area just in case you can find a spare record to save your game. It's basically the same as the ink ribbons from Resident Evil. Even some of the records you find are broken in half, so you'll have to find 2 separate pieces and then tape them together with either precious tape or wood glue for your weapons. Even the shotgun you'd normally find in Miller's storage is broken. It's missing a pump, and you won't find that pump for at least another few chapters. Overall, very punishing, absolutely atrocious experience, 10 out of 10.
Seal of approval.
And that's not even the end, because just like the original, there's a new game plus. Somehow, this is even more rigged against you than the mod version. New Game Plus throws you into a cut-down version of the main game. Everything here is even more hellish. The skybox in the mod was just a black void, but now it's almost an ocean, making you feel fathoms deep underwater. You start out with a double-barrel shotgun, the same as the mod, an axe, and a bunch of supplies. The voice on the radio is also completely absent. Every chapter is now infested with endgame enemies. There's also entirely new enemies here, and apparitions to show that Tyler never actually got better. The Hunter also makes an appearance, doing 2 full bars of damage, as well as instantly breaking any weapon you try to use to parry him. There are safe zones you get to briefly stop the pursuer, but they're incredibly small and fleeting. If you combine this with survivalist mode, you'll be getting pretty close to feeling exactly how Tyler did going through the game. Most of the steps you would take for the good ending are completely inaccessible. And when you make it to the end, you get a very different ending.
Police department, we need you to open the door.
One that I wasn't expecting and is incredibly depressing.
Hello? Anyone home?
The ending picks up from where you left off on the regular ending of the main game.
Jesus.
Oh, God. How long have they been like that?
Though Tyler is dead and wouldn't be around to see this, you can either interpret this as his imagining of how the world would find him after his suicide.
Oldest letter is dated 89. It's been 8 years. And nobody came for him.
Or that even in death, he's still not free from his suffering. If anything, just delving more into this madness.
It's honestly a bit of a shock. I mean, in the main game, you literally see him commit suicide, but hearing the police officers find his body, as well as being able to see his body hanging there, it's pretty grim. You even just have the detail at the end where you see letters scattered in front of his door alongside a bracelet. Cora's bracelet.
As Tyler spiraled down into his negative thoughts and distanced himself from everyone in his life through literally burning and killing connections, as you do many times throughout the game, there was no one left to care about him anymore. No one left to check on him, either alienated or pushed away from him. I spoke to Sam, the developer, on why the New Game Plus ending is so bitter and meek. And he told me that this ending is loosely based off a real-life story that happened to Joyce Vincent, a British woman who died in 2003. A couple years before her death, she had heavily reduced contact with her friends and family, and with no one to check on her, it took a full 2 years for her body to be found in her apartment, with her TV still on from the day that she died. Even the theme of unopened letters under the door might be inspired from her story, as her family tried contacting her, even hiring a private detective to try and find her. They only ever found her previous address and tried sending letters to get her there, but never got a reply. Even to this day, no one knows a clear, specific reason why Joyce chose to self-isolate to that extent. But I do think that Total Chaos does an amazing job of showing the portrayal of how incredibly easy it is for people to fall into that cycle. Even how the therapist tapes tell you directly that isolation can very easily and quickly become its own addiction.
You're staying inside, and that can be worrisome. It gets to be kind of like its own addiction.
You might start manifesting realities that don't exist, where Tyler was projecting this inner anger onto everyone around him. And that creates a self-fulfilling cycle of pushing people away, so the idea that they always hated you becomes a reality, which in turn only fueled his own narrative. I know a fair amount of people that watch content like this do consider themselves some kind of outsider. You know, the person at the party that's in the corner of the room going, they'd never understand me. I watch YouTuber video essays.
Shut the fuck up! You shut.
And I know you've all heard what I'm going to say a million times, but it's always important to reach out to people. Friends, family, even a random person in a video game. There's always a connection to be made. Unless it's Valorant, then you're a completely lost cause. Sorry, mate.
Every kill you get, I'll give you an
Walter White impression.
Jesse, where's the cocainer? Jesse, where did you put the methy? Jesse, we need to cock methy for stove frig. Very important. Now go. You have come here to find something. Something we have both desired for a long time. Your presence in this place
means that you are willing to do what I ask of you.
If you follow my requests, then I will take you to what it is you desire.
It feels familiar, doesn't it? You loved this place once. Every step you took, every fight, every desperate breath, it was all part of the same march towards the inevitable.
What do you think it is that you can achieve by letting that thing roam this place? You're making a mistake. It won't solve anything.
Over the past few weeks, I've noticed a real shift in your attitude. It seems like you're starting to accept your darker thoughts.
Enough!
I don't even know if I'm helping. I left him.
Mayday! Mayday! This is CG Vessel 297. Cosine TJS. I'm taking on water. Repeat, I am taking on water off the coast.
Can't beat the view up here.
But why here?
You have to look beyond this.
No longer can we avoid her, I fear, and I have no doubt she'll be waiting for you down there. So you'll need a weapon more conventional.
Tyler, how could you say such disgusting things? I don't even know where your head is at anymore, and honestly, I don't want to. I want nothing to do with you.
They said it wouldn't change anything. And now it's too late! I don't need them. I don't need anyone. Someone could still understand. But not them. Not family. Something else.
Construction on the small island of Fort Oasis began in mid-1963, home to Deep Mining Complex and the South, which housed around 2,000 residents, until the mine officially shut down in January of 1994. By June of that year, the island had been cleared of all inhabitants.
That note that you gave me from before, what was that all about?
This isolation, it's only going to make things worse. There are people who care about you. It sounds like there's a lot going on inside your head. We need to get you back to baseline.
You let this all fall apart! You left us to rot!
They were all looking down on me. Those smug fucking faces. Smirking at every step and every stumble. They'll see soon enough. They'll rot. They'll rot all the same. I think it's time I drag them down to my level, letting them choke on the suffering. Choke on the suffering they left me to drown in.
I know you, Tyler. You're stronger than you think. You've been through more than anyone should ever have to face. But you've always found a way to come through. You always survive.
They will try to stop you. If they get in your way,
Kill them.
a disease.
It has taken over this place.
If you intend to pass, you'll need protection.
A radiation suit.
Listen, that voice you've been following, that one on the radio, I'm trying to reach him, desperately.
Ignore this, all of it. We don't need another distraction.
Please, take a seat. Mr. Scott, this is John Thomas calling again from CW Medical. I'm pleased to let you know that the therapy was a success. You're officially in remission. We'd like to schedule a follow-up test in a few months, just to keep an eye on things. But for now, I think it's safe to say celebrations are in order.
You are worthless! You are always worthless! You did this! You took everything from me!
Even when we beat the disease, it was still a death sentence. She left us.
She left us. Everyone left us.
The isolation.
The isolation. The loneliness. I don't have to take it anymore.
I've made mistakes. I ran and I watched everything fall apart.
There it is, his confession. Warm, nervous, and naive.
You're a good person, Tyler. I'll never forget the time we shared.
It may be faint, but it's there.
The lines, they're fading. It's getting harder to tell.
You just have to find us again.
Where the island ends and you begin.
You just have to keep moving toward it.
I didn't want our last words to be another fight.
The pain, the voices, every choice you've made.
You're not trapped by your thoughts.
Strange how fragile truth becomes here.
You just have to let them pass.
Stranger still how much you trusted.
I know it hurts, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
I love you. I always will.
Tyler.
I
was wrong. I was wrong.
And that's all the stuff in the remake. I mean, if you look at how long this video is, it really tells you just how more expansive Total Chaos has become. I remember I finished the original video talking about how the mod had so many ideas planned for it, and honestly, I'm very glad that so many things ended up finally getting an implementation in the remake. Sadly, that radiation removal station I showed back then and the little Minecraft chest for storage didn't make it in. But I reckon it's a worthy trade-off for stuff like the madness mechanic. And of course, there's some stuff missing in the original that didn't make it into the remake. The ones I actually noticed being gone were the invisible shade enemy that would instantly kill you if you got too close, and one ranged weapon, the nail gun. But I'm convinced there is not a single person out there who gives a shit about the nail gun.